This is the multi-voice text-to-speech podfic reading of Good Bones by R33sesPieces, composed by Burning Aurora, Kaliana, and Flowerhawk. Chapter 1, Grand Designs.
We'll take it,
Sirius cried, throwing his arms wide. The real estate agent's jaw dropped as she looked from Sirius's beatific face to the sagging door of the rundown farmhouse they just toured. Remus could see the moment she decided not to look this particular gift horse in the mouth. Her wide smile showed every one of her brilliantly white veneers, made all the more noticeable by the fuchsia on her lips.
Can I consider that a verbal offer, sir? What shall I take to the sellers?
Asking price, in cash if you please, as soon as they're willing to close.
Her eyes widened.
Yes, of course, sir. I'll call them right away.
Remus cast an eye over the old house. The front door didn't hang straight. The agent had to give it a firm shove to open it upon their arrival. One of the shutters was missing, its bottom hinge, whilst the top one barely hung on. The slate roof's flashing needed work. The chimney's mortar was crumbling, and the windows were wheezing their last breath. And that's just what Remus could see from where he was standing. The inside was a complete gut. Remus stepped closer to his husband and slid an arm around his waist.
Are you sure, love? This is only the third one we've looked at, and it's going to need a lot of work.
Mooney, I love it.
Sirius gushed, turning his big gray eyes on him.
Don't you? It's close enough to your parents that we can see them whenever we want, but far enough away that they'll call before coming over. The acreage is beautiful. There's an old barn where I can work on my bike. It has broadband for your work.
He looked to the agent to confirm, and she nodded so vigorously her helmet of a blonde bob moved for the first time since Remus had met her.
And a ton of space for Shirley to chase rabbits. It's just perfect. Can't you feel it, Moonbeam? This is the one.
Remus didn't know why he bothered putting up the cursory fight. They both knew he lived to serve, that he'd crumple under the slightest pressure of Sirius's whims. So what if they were 30 miles from nowhere and 50 from the nearest contractor? Sirius wanted it, so have it he would. That's how this worked. He smiled at his husband.
Of course I can. I just wanted to make sure you were certain. I'm on board. It has good bones.
I'll give you a good bone.
Sirius murmured, then summoned the realtor.
Annette, make the call.
She scampered away, unable to believe her luck, and pulled her mobile from the handbag that was perfectly color-coordinated with her lipstick. Remus took a moment to wonder if she was this pink every day, or if she had an unlimited supply of matching cosmetics and purses. Then Sirius pulled him close and softly pressed their lips together, and Remus forgot anything else in the world existed.
Chickens, Mooney. We're going to get chickens.
Remus laughed and kissed him again.
Whatever you want, sweetheart. Your wish is my command.
Sirius pushed the front door open wide and practically danced across the threshold.
Honey, we're home,
he called. The sound echoed off the chipped tiles and peeling wallpaper of the empty entry hall and back into Sirius's open arms.
I'm right behind you, love. There's no need to shout.
Remus grumbled around the box Sirius had pulled out of the back seat and shoved into his hands. A black streak nearly knocked him over as their gigantic mutt raced between his legs to bark up the staircase.
Hush, Shirley,
Sirius said softly with a pat to the dog's furry head. She settled onto her haunches to pant up at him instead, though she still snuck out a low growl every few breaths.
I'm greeting the house, Mooney, not you. Say hello. She needs to know you too.
Remus set the box on the floor, wrapped his arms around Sirius's waist, settled his chin on his husband's shoulder, and placed a quick peck on the hinge of his jaw.
Hello, house. It feels really nice to finally be inside you.
Sirius snorted.
Really? That's the impression you're looking to make on the place we want to love and protect us for the next 60 years. Thinly veiled innuendo.
I appreciate your optimism, Padfoot, but we're almost 40. 60 years seems ambitious.
Sirius huffed his disapproval at Remus's acknowledgement of human mortality. Remus smiled into the kiss he pressed to the back of his neck before giving him one more tight squeeze and letting him go.
We have one afternoon to unload everything before Prongs needs to bring the van back to London, and probably about 3 hours before the strapping 17-year-old, who agreed to help us move, reaches the end of his enthusiasm. Do you need some time to prepare, or can we start bringing things in?
Sirius cast a longing glance at the makeshift storage of his magical accoutrements and sighed.
Just let me sweep out and salt this doorway. The rest of it can wait until tomorrow.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Remus was happy to support Sirius's practice of the craft. even if his own feet were grounded solidly in the tangible. But right now, they had a lot of very heavy things to unload and a ticking clock, and he had been informed many times that witchcraft couldn't be rushed. He'd leave Sirius to attune the vibes or whatever tomorrow. Right now, they needed to move. In the end, it only took 4.5 hours to get their things inside the house, which felt like a victory. Yes, their boxes were piled haphazardly in every corner, and they were going to have to sleep on a mattress on their bedroom floor for the night. But it was done, and Remus hadn't thrown his back out in the process. He couldn't make any promises for how it'd feel tomorrow, though. Being in his late 30s was rough. He eyed the bare mattress warily.
It's odd that we're in the middle of doing the most adult thing we've ever done, and this makes me feel like I've regressed half my lifespan.
Sirius laughed.
It'll be fun, Mooney. Like we're in uni again. Everyone knows the boys with a mattress on the floor are the best rides.
He waggled his eyebrows and grinned.
How would you know that? Were you secretly shagging James behind my back? He's the only one I remember having a sad floor mattress.
You think Harry was old enough to make a run for his mummy at her uni graduation because Prongs was bad at sex, do you?
Sirius asked. Remus snorted.
Fair point.
He found their sheets in the box right under their pillows, said a mental thank you to Lily for her organization, and made up their bed. In the end, Sirius was right. It was rather fun to play at being 20-somethings again, including a giggling giddy shag after a celebratory nip from the bottle of scotch James gifted them. Shirley seemed the most disgruntled with their lackluster sleeping accommodations. It took her a dozen turns to bed down in her usual nesting spot on Sirius's feet, where she spent the whole night making concerned little grumbles toward the corner of the room. Remus gave up on sleep shortly before dawn, when her questioning whines turned into little boofs of indignation.
All right, let's go.
Remus sighed and rolled away from the comforting warmth of Sirius's body heat. He couldn't find his housecoat or any clean joggers in the dark, but there was a throw blanket in the bottom of the sheet box, so he wrapped that around his shoulders and was grateful they bought a house in the middle of bloody nowhere. Shirley reluctantly followed him down the stairs, stopping every few steps to look back at the bedroom.
Come on, girl, out you go.
Remus had to urge her through the door, then watched her sniff a winding route through the grass from the front path.
I'm just as capable of letting you out for your morning wee as he is, you know.
Remus grumbled.
Daft thing.
When Shirley finished her business and came into the house, she skittered up the stairs and into bed before Remus could wiggle the door shut. He found her stretched out across his half of the mattress, head rising and falling with Sirius's chest as she gazed up at him in adoration. Remus could empathize with the feeling, even if he told himself he looked a little less dopey and devoted when it was his head on Sirius's chest. He didn't. Well, no more sleep for him. The dog had kicked him out of bed. Remus made himself a cuppa and lowered himself into the armchair set haphazardly before the living room picture window, then scrolled through the news and watched the sunrise. It really was beautiful here. All rolling green hills and patchwork fields, broken up here and there by the occasional copse of trees. Golden rays cut through the fog that clung to the slopes, casting everything in a soft, otherworldly glow. He hadn't realized it in all the years they spent in London, but he missed this. The open space and the quiet, interrupted only by the songbirds stretching their wings. He was so happy to finally be home. His reverie was interrupted by the clicking of long toenails on slate floors, and 35 kilos of black fur and slobber in his lap, closely followed by a kiss to the top of his head.
Good morning, Moonshine. Sleep well.
Sirius asked.
Well enough, though this beast had me up before the sun.
Remus said with an affectionate scratch under Shirley's chin.
How about you?
I slept like the dead. It's like my body just knew that I was home, you know. Like we're meant to be here. Like the house wants us here.
Sirius gave the windowsill a little pat.
I know what you mean.
Remus agreed. It was the spirit of the thing, really, even if he didn't believe houses had preferences for their residents.
I didn't realize just how much London didn't feel right until we got back here.
He stood, every joint creaking and popping with his full body stretch.
Lily put the coffee right next to the tea in the kettle. The absolute goddess. I'll make you some.
Thank you. That'd be wonderful.
Sirius stood on his toes to kiss his cheek before stealing his spot in the armchair. They shared a slow morning and a picturesque view squished into the same seat, jostling each other's mugs with every movement and missing scalded bollocks just by the skin of their teeth. When Remus was caffeinated enough to be awake, and Sirius was caffeinated enough to quiet his mind, Sirius shooed him to the study at the back of the house.
You start setting up your office. I'll make sure the house knows us.
Which was why, 2 hours later, the entire house smelled of burning herbs. Every window was open. There was a 90s girl power playlist thrumming through a speaker that Sirius took with him from room to room, and Remus nearly tripped over a circle of crystals that looked like it was holding a seance around a bowl of salt water positioned at the bottom of the stairs. He found Sirius in the sitting room dusting off the mantle over the ugly 1970s-era fireplace surround.
Hi, baby.
He wrapped his arms around his husband's waist and kissed the cheek presented to him in greeting.
I can help with this part, you know. You don't have to clean alone.
Next time. I love you desperately, you know this, but you're terrible at vibe attunement.
Remus chuckled.
I feel like I should be offended by that. You don't like my vibes.
I adore your vibes, but they're terrible for relaxing spaces. Your purpose is all wrong. You clean for efficiency and task completion. This clean is to set an intention for fulfillment and togetherness.
Sirius grabbed a stack of framed photos out of a box and started lining them up as if to prove his point. There was one from their wedding, one where Harry was leaning out of Sirius's arms on his 3rd birthday to press a cake-smeared kiss to Remus's cheek, one of James and Lily asleep on their couch at Sirius's 22nd birthday, one where Shirley's tongue is buried in Sirius's ear the day they brought her home as he giggled like mad, already besotted with their new puppy. There were ones of Remus's parents, the Potters, Regulus, Kingsley, and their twin little girls, moment after moment of their lives together lined up in an altar celebrating the people they love.
And that's why we're listening to Wannabe right now.
He teased, clicking the volume down a notch so they could talk.
Yes, I'm setting expectations. If the house wants to be our lover, it has to get with our friends. I'm making sure it knows how far to extend the protections.
Sirius's eyes sparkled as his grin crinkled their corners, and Remus was hopelessly in love with him. He hoped the house could feel that too.
In that case, I'll leave you to it. I did just about soak the floorboards with your salt water bath when I came down the hall, though, so maybe I'll put that on the credenza instead. I don't want to accidentally taint the entry to our home.
Sirius shuddered.
God, that'd take me ages to get out. I was shooting for the center of the main floor, but it can be a bit wonky if that's the alternative. Thank you. Try to keep the crystals in the same arrangement. I want the clear quartz and the pyrite together so the luck and manifesting is amplified.
Quartz and pyrite together, or I'll never get lucky again. Got it?
Remus nodded. Sirius snapped his arse with his dust rag.
See? This is why I don't let you help.
Remus moved the bowl as instructed and made each of them a sandwich for lunch, then disappeared back to his study to finish a proof of concept for his client. He emailed it off for testing and feedback, stretched his arms over his head, arched his back over the ancient desk chair Sirius kept begging him to replace, and groaned as a series of cracks rolled down his shoulders and spine. He cocked an ear to track where Sirius might be in his ritual. The music was gone, replaced by a low murmuring and the occasional ring of a bell. He crept into the archway between the rooms and mentally thanked the flagstones for their silence so he could watch his husband undetected.
We ask you to welcome us and provide us with safety and protection, a place we can come to rest our bodies and our minds, where we can restore ourselves so we can bring positive energy into the world outside this space. In return, we intend to honor your past, to revive and restore you as an act of love for the home you provide. Please understand any changes we make are meant as those of stewards, not conquerors enforcing their will on this space.
A clear, melodic tone rang out as he twitched the bell in his hand. Sirius was wandering from room to room in what Remus assumed was a considered pattern, but was completely unintelligible to him. His fingers brushed against the slate floor, the wainscoting, and the chipped tiles of the kitchen countertop, as he kept up a steady stream of one-sided conversation.
Thank you for the years of service in providing your families a place upon which to build meals to nourish themselves both physically and spiritually. You can rest soon,
he said with a palm flat on the most damaged stretch of terracotta tiles. In response, a breeze blew through the open window and ruffled the loose strands of salt and pepper hair that framed his face. Remus bit his lip to contain his grin at Sirius's softness. People were always surprised to find out Sirius was a witch. They assumed his motorbike-riding, leather-clad husband got into it as a sort of alternative, aesthetic-based choice, that he came for the tapered black candles and stayed for the cultural fuck you that his spiritual beliefs occupied. And maybe when he was in his early 20s and he first took up the practice, there was some element of truth to that. But now, 15 years later, Remus knew his hearth witch husband's practice was rooted in his unfailing loyalty. Sirius loved hard, he loved deep, he loved forever, and he wanted to extend that love into the physical space around them. It flowed out of him until it imbued the very bones of every home they'd ever had, and it was the only way he'd found to channel it that satisfied his need to adore and protect. And Sirius loved this house. It was theirs in a way that no uni housing or London flat had ever been. Of course, he'd treat it with the same respect and devotion he showed to everything else he treasured. Remus sent a quick mental request to the house to love Sirius back, to please let their many projects run as smoothly as a centuries-old structure could allow. It was what he deserved.
You don't have to hide, my love. You can come in.
Sirius called, and Remus knew he'd been caught spying.
I just didn't want to interrupt. You seemed focused.
Remus said as he shuffled out of the shadows.
I'm never too focused for you.
Sirius smiled, even though that was a patent lie. It wasn't unusual for Remus to have to say his name 3 or 4 times when all his attention was on the task at hand.
Also, I'm done.
He struck a match and lit the candle that had replaced the saltwater bath on the side.
I think she's ready for us.
Yeah.
Remus asked, taking the match and putting it on the tray at the candle's base, before pulling Sirius into his arms.
What about you? Are you ready?
Sirius grinned.
Bring it on.
They decided they'd both had enough for the day, so they didn't bother putting the bed together. Instead, they slept on their sad floor mattress one more night and invited Remus's parents over for help setting up the next day. Remus actually slept this time, whether it was because Shirley had made a tenuous peace with the corner of their bedroom or because he was too tired to notice her disapproval. Remus wasn't sure, nor did he care. All that mattered was the solid night of dreamless sleep he got before he was awakened by a cold nose against his neck and a wet tongue to the bottom of his jaw.
Shirley, you can't be serious.
He mumbled as he pushed the dog off the mattress. She landed on the floor with a disgruntled huff and started lapping at Remus's fingers instead.
I'm not sure when I became your designated morning human, and I don't think I like it.
Remus grumbled as he got out of bed and followed her downstairs. He checked his phone as he pushed the creaky door open and grunted when he saw a cheerful message from his ma'am saying they were on the way.
Then again, maybe this was lucky. Bloody morning people.
By the time his parents arrived, Remus and Sirius were both up and just finishing the first morning brew.
Perfect timing.
Sirius poured them each a cuppa with a flourish.
And we brought breakfast.
Hope said with a grin as she presented a box of pastries.
Congratulations on the new home, Cariads.
You didn't need to do that.
Remus admonished even as he took the gift.
Here, help yourself. You're going to need sustenance.
Putting us right to work, are you?
Lyle asked as he picked out a Welsh cake that oozed jam when he bit into it. Sirius shook his head whilst Remus answered.
Yes. If I sleep on a mattress on the floor one more night, my back is going to rebel.
If you're having a hard time with that, you're in for a long road, son.
Lyle warned.
Don't think I didn't notice the way the door stuck on our way in.
I think that's the first real project.
Sirius nodded.
Not just the door, but the whole outside. The chimney, the windows, probably a fresh coat of whitewash.
He trailed off, and Remus could practically see his mind spinning in 1,000 different directions as he planned his projects.
Best to keep yourselves warm and dry.
Lyle agreed.
Chimneys can be right stubborn blighters if you don't know what you're doing. Muck up the crown, and your house will never be dry again. Shall we take a look?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Sirius said, already leading him back outside. Remus watched them go with a wrinkled nose.
So I guess we're not putting the bed together then?
His ma'am laughed.
Let them have their fun. Your Dar insisted on wearing his work boots despite me telling him we were doing the basics inside today. He'd be devastated if he didn't end up on the roof.
They weren't up there long, much to Remus's delight, and the 4 of them made quick work of their bedroom furniture. Lyle and Sirius chattered all the while about remodel plans, which led to a trip into the village to peruse the hardware store's supplies. They returned a couple hours later with giant grins and more tools than Remus hoped they'd ever use. He was wrong. Oh, he was so painfully, naively wrong. Over the next couple months, they not only used most of the tools, they acquired more. They needed a slate trimmer for the roof. They needed a breaker attachment for the new hammer drill. They needed about 4 different buckets of builder's sand and concrete to match their current chimney mortar. Remus nearly had a heart attack the day Sirius came home with joy-bright eyes and informed him they'd purchased a tractor. A bloody tractor. Why the fuck did they need a tractor? He was, of course, proved wrong when a full week of rain flooded the pasture, and Sirius got to spend a couple days happily digging ditches to divert the water away from the house. It was misery, truly, but Padfoot seemed to be having a great time. After a long afternoon spent moving dirt hither and thither, Sirius came inside, put his feet up on the ottoman in front of the fireplace, and stretched out with a self-satisfied sigh.
Not a drip inside. Did you see that, Mooney?
I did.
Remus said indulgently, as though it wasn't incredibly impressive that his husband spent a day learning roofing at his da's knee and went on to replicate the process perfectly across the rest of the house, the barn, and the pigsty-cum-perspective chicken coop. It was almost annoying how quickly Sirius picked up on handyman skills. Remus spent long swaths of his childhood being forced to learn, and all he had to show for it was an eye for shoddy craftsmanship and a ridged thumbnail that never grew back right after a rogue shot with a hammer. Remus headed to the kitchen to get them some tea to ward off the damp cold and found an unpleasant surprise near the kettle. He was devastated when he had to present the bad news to Sirius, along with his mug.
We might need to work on the windows next, I'm afraid.
Why's that?
The one over the sink has a steady stream of water coming in. Sorry, love.
Remus grimaced. Sirius pouted.
Well, it was nice while it lasted.
Remus convinced him to let professionals install the windows, thank God, and then all that remained outside was to fix the door and refresh the whitewash. At last, something Remus could help with. It was the hottest bloody day of the summer, 34 degrees and sticky, and Remus found himself on the hired scaffold with the world's longest paint roller in hand. He'd taken off his shirt when the temperature was somewhere between stifling and actual hell, so now he was drenched in sweat from the top of his scalp to the soles of his feet. His back was sunburned, and his chest was spattered in whitewash.
Disgusting,
He muttered as he swiped a slick forearm across his brow. A wolf whistle sounded from below.
Baby, you must be a sailor because you've got me at full mast.
Remus chuckled and called back.
Pretty sure that's a shipwright, love. Sailors don't actually build the boats.
Get down here, Long John Silver, so I can make the stern match the bow.
Remus sputtered out a laugh as Sirius gestured to his white-speckled front with a lascivious wink.
Do you actually need me to come down, or are you just here to sexually harass me?
Mostly the first. I got distracted.
Sirius said with a shrug and a grin. Remus set his painting things aside, good riddance, and climbed down the ladder.
What's wrong?
Come look at this light. I just replaced it and it won't stop flickering.
Sirius led him to the front door, which he'd spent the morning shaving down and painting black, and pointed at the brass lamp.
I didn't think the wiring looked fucky, and everything else on this breaker seems to be working fine. Any ideas?
Remus frowned and craned his neck to look at the base, then poked it to make sure it was secure.
Bloody fur.
He cursed, shaking out his hand.
This thing's a vindictive little twat, isn't it? It just shocked me.
Sirius took his hand and examined it.
Are you okay? Do we need to get you looked at?
No, I'm fine.
Remus shook his head.
It was just a little one.
He cast a dark look at the fixture.
You can be replaced, you know.
The light, unsurprisingly, said nothing.
Look at this one, Mooney. Isn't it pretty?
Sirius asked, dragging Remus by the hand to look at a soft, pearlescent rose mosaic tile backsplash.
Pink is the color of self-love, you know. Perfect for the bathroom. Pampering.
All Remus saw was hundreds of teeny, tiny lines of grout to keep clean, but that didn't seem like a helpful comment, and they'd been in the tile showroom for 3 minutes. Sirius would find something he liked better.
It's very pretty, but it feels busy for a shower tile. Could use it as an accent.
He said instead.
Good point.
Sirius wrinkled his nose, then gasped as his attention was pulled toward the most impractical shower surround Remus had ever seen. Rows of hexagons painted with jungle plants spilled across the walls like a paint splotch, its haphazard borders and bare patches of sheetrock striking Remus as more of a mold risk than artistic expression.
What do you think about this? Maybe we need to get in touch with our inner beasts.
Sirius gave a playful growl. Remus chuckled and murmured in his ear.
The scratches down my back suggest you're quite well acquainted with yours already, Padfoot.
I didn't hear any complaints about that at the time.
Sirius blushed and nudged him with his shoulder.
Oh, trust me, there weren't any.
Remus said smugly.
Flirt.
Remus smiled and let himself be led away.
Oh, the black monochrome is so dramatic. I think it suits, don't you?
Sirius asked, brushing his fingers across the matte herringbone pattern interspersed with occasional glossy tiles.
And then with the gold fixtures, it looks rather upscale.
He frowned.
Might be a little too upscale. I'm not sure it's the right fit for our little cottage. Perhaps something more like this.
He pulled Remus to the next design that caught his eye.
Look at these little wildflowers. Aren't they cute? A little kitschy, but I like the idea of bringing in some botanical themes. More natural.
His eyes lit up when the next thing grabbed his attention.
Or maybe more like this, with the wooden accent wall. It feels like we're in a spa, doesn't it? Very good for relaxation.
They circled the store for what felt like hours, poking and prodding and assessing the materials, the colors, the shape and size of every tile inside, until Remus's eyes crossed from all the patterns and tiny hexagons. Sirius didn't seem to be faring much better. By the time they'd finished their third circuit, he just stood in the middle of the room, chewing his lip as his gaze darted from one display to the next, overwhelmed by the options.
Sweetheart, we don't have to choose today.
Remus said gently and pressed a soft kiss to his knuckles.
We have a functional tub and spray attachment. We're fine. Take a few samples and sleep on it. We're not in a hurry.
A look of sheer relief passed over his husband's face.
Yeah, you're right. We have tons of time. I'll go get the salesperson.
They wound up going home with a few sheets of a navy blue herringbone, the rose wildflower pattern, some dull sandstone that Remus knew only made the cut because it felt safe to Sirius's overstimulated brain, and the pearly mosaic that first caught his eye. None of them were a winner, Remus was certain, but sometimes Sirius needed to do some trial and error to get things right. He could trust the process, even if it meant spraying down his knobby knees by hand for a couple months longer. This had been Remus's favorite part of remodeling thus far. Not only was it rather fun to go about intentionally breaking things, it was also very fun watching Sirius go about intentionally breaking things, swinging a sledgehammer, yanking at a pry bar to pull down as much lath and plaster ceiling as he could in a single wrench. Generally sweating, straining, and conducting himself like some sort of low-born day laborer instead of the soft-handed nobility he was, or used to be. He'd likely get in a strop if Remus called him that to his face now, and that was fair, really. Not only had he been fixing their cars and handling their home maintenance for the last couple decades, he'd spent the last several months attacking the house with a loving vengeance, as he repaired what he could, restored what he couldn't, and modernized what needed it. Like this project, for instance. They'd been considering replacing the plaster anyway, given the amount of crumbling and water damage on the ceiling. Then Sirius had taken out the crystal and polished gold light to install something a little more modern, and it killed everything. The entire upstairs blew. The new light, the one in the hallway, even the alarm clock in their bedroom was flashing 12 o'clock. When Remus went upstairs to check on him, it was always a bit alarming when electrical work went awry. Sirius had taken down the new fixture and was frowning at the blackened wires poking out of the hole in the ceiling.
Bollocks.
What's wrong?
Remus asked, sliding his noise-canceling headphones down around his neck.
I think the wiring is fucked. We'll have to get an electrician out.
The wiring was indeed fucked, which was why Sirius had declared it a loss, and they wound up here, destroying the ceiling and a good chunk of the walls in the first floor so they could update the wiring and, more importantly, Remus could ogle his husband whilst he completed feats of strength.
What?
Sirius panted as a shower of lime plaster, wood, and insulation tumbled over his head. He looked ridiculous with his heavy respirator and dusty clothes, his sweaty hair sticking to his forehead. Remus shook his head and smiled.
Nothing. I just like you, that's all.
Sirius's eyes crinkled behind his safety glasses. He'd be blushing if he wasn't already so flushed from exertion. He always did when Remus was too soft, even after all this time.
Hush you and get to work.
Remus picked up his pry bar and wiggled it between the lath and plaster, trying to save a little of this section's wood if possible.
So if we're changing all the electrical work,
He grunted as he wrenched on the stubborn lime.
could we put in some recessed lighting?
No answer. No cracking of boards behind his back. No thuds or patter as debris rained down. He turned to make sure everything was okay and found his husband gaping at him, open-mouthed.
What, Padfoot?
You take that back right now.
Sirius pointed an angry finger at him. Remus was so confused.
Take it back. Why?
Mooney, oh my God.
Sirius groaned.
Please tell me you don't want downlights. They're awful. They're too bright. They cast shadows over everything, and they completely ruin the ambiance of any room they're in. This is a bedroom, Moons. We want guests to feel comfortable here, not like they're in prison.
He shook his head, appalled.
I can't believe you'd ask me that. We'll put in a nice fixture and lamps, like a bedroom deserves. We can get you a fun desk lamp or something, and maybe those fairy lights for behind your computer if you want them.
Properly chastised, Remus nodded.
If you feel that strongly about it, yeah, okay, that works. I reserve the right to bring this up again if I still can't see shit, though. Deal.
Deal.
Sirius agreed, though the look of disgust on his face said Sirius would likely be standing his ground. He turned back to his work with a grumble.
Bloody downlights. We have this beautiful historic home, and you want to ruin the ceiling with LED downlights.
Padfoot, we are actively and intentionally ruining the ceiling right now. This thing we're doing, it's called demolition. We're demolishing it.
Remus laughed in exasperation.
Yes, and then I'm going to do my best to learn how to plaster, and if I can't figure it out, I'll hire somebody who knows what they're doing to come in and set it right.
Remus half expected Sirius to stomp his foot like Harry used to when he was dead set on getting his way. Lily and James would blame each other for his stubbornness, but Remus thought he learned that at his godfather's knee.
Love, that's going to cost a fortune. Can't we just...
Remus broke off when he saw the look on Sirius's face.
Okay, right. Fortune it is. Money is no object. Got it. Carry on with your destruction then.
Thank you.
Sirius said primly, then yanked down the entire northwest corner.
You're welcome, I guess.
Remus grumbled and shoved his pry bar a little too aggressively at the ceiling, breaking through the lath.
Ouch, fuck.
He dropped the metal rod with a clatter.
What happened?
Sirius asked, checking over his shoulder to make sure Remus was okay. Remus shook out his hand and kicked at the blasted hunk of steel.
I got shocked. Just a little one. I thought everything was off up there.
It was supposed to be. I flipped all the breakers for the first floor.
Sirius frowned, then gave him a mischievous smirk.
Maybe the house doesn't want downlights either.
Remus sneezed. Then he sneezed again. Then he sneezed a third time, cast an irritated eye over the bedroom furniture shoved haphazardly around the ground floor, and went to open the window. The electrical and plastering projects had gone moderately well. The electrician was fast and switched everything over to a modern ring system, while Sirius learned the skills to do patchwork, but wound up calling in the obscenely expensive restorative plasterers to take care of the ceilings, which meant it was time to move on to refinishing the floors. James and Lyle had come back the weekend before and moved all of their things back downstairs. Sirius hired a couple different types of sander, and then every surface in the entire house was coated in a thin layer of sawdust. It was loud, too. Remus spent his entire workday in his noise-canceling headphones in hopes he'd be able to hear himself think. And as if the noise wasn't bad enough, he had to work from his laptop instead of his desktop, and he sorely missed his extra screens. The little portable one he had for backup just didn't cut it. God, he was ready to be done living in a construction zone. At least, Sirius assured him things should be cleaner after this project. Remus didn't consider himself to be a neat freak by any means, but there was a difference between a little clutter and putting on a respirator as part of his daily routine. Still, Sirius was right. The flagstones on the ground floor were in good shape. Restoring the brick fireplace had been the second order of business when they started this whole mess, and this should be the last of the powder dust filth phase. Remus was a little worried about what would happen when they finally got around to tiling the shower, but he wasn't going to borrow tomorrow's trouble when he could still run a grimy finger through today's. The tooth-rattling vibrations from upstairs suddenly stopped as he was settling back into the sofa. He slipped one headphone off just in time to hear Sirius yell.
Fuck.
Bugger.
Remus muttered and set his work things aside. If Sirius was shouting expletives, it was time to offer some support. He trudged up the stairs with a heavy sense of trepidation. It sounded like frustration, not pain, so Remus wasn't worried his husband was injured. Whatever awaited him at the top was going to be messy, time-consuming, expensive, or all three, but it wouldn't require a trip to A&E.
What's wrong?
Remus leaned against the doorway to watch Sirius change the roll on the belt sander.
Bloody nails keep tearing my bloody paper.
Sirius growled, tossing a murderous look at a board under the window.
Can you?
Remus chewed his lip. He knew nothing about refinishing floors.
I don't know. Can you hammer them back in so they're flat?
Tried that.
Sirius grunted.
Fucker split the plank down the edge.
Were you gentle about it?
Gentle didn't look like it was in Sirius's wheelhouse at the moment.
Yes, I was bloody gentle.
Sirius snarled, then took a deep breath.
Or, well, as gentle as one can be when banging on it with a hammer.
Remus huffed a laugh.
Fair enough. Anything I can do.
Can you go back in time a couple hundred years and stop the owners from refinishing them once or twice? I think that would help.
Sirius complained.
I'll see if I can find a TARDIS somewhere around here. Short of calling in Doctor Who, anything I can do.
It's the Doctor.
Sirius corrected.
What?
Not Doctor Who.
He explained.
Just the Doctor.
Remus snorted. Sirius must really be in a mood if he was getting pedantic about television characters.
Right. My mistake. I think you should come downstairs and eat, my love. It's time for a break.
Sirius pouted up at him from his spot on the floor.
I'm not hungry.
Yes, you are. And you're frustrated. And that's making all of this harder. And Shirley has been whining at the bottom of the steps all morning because she can't see you. At least come scritch her ears.
Sirius sighed.
You can't always trick me with the dog, you know.
Yes, I can.
Remus pulled Sirius to his feet and pressed a soft kiss to his lips.
You know, it's okay if we can't save all the original furnishings, right? You're not letting the house down if the centuries-old floors need to be replaced. They had a good run.
Sirius cast a longing look at the wood beneath their feet.
Yes, they're beautiful though. Or they would be if I could fix them.
They would be,
Remus agreed.
but new ones would be beautiful too. And if these are thin enough that the nails are out and they're cracking when you pound them back in, well, sweetheart, it might be time to let them go. I love this house too, but I don't love it more than I love you. Don't burn yourself out, that's all I'm asking.
I won't.
Sirius promised as he let Remus lead him downstairs. Remus hoped that was true. Sirius didn't always recognize his limits until he sprinted straight through them. Maybe, if Remus helped, he could stop this from being one of those times. It started over their morning mugs, Sirius's coffee and Remus's tea.
What if I got into stained glass?
Sirius pondered in that voice he used when he had an idea Remus probably wouldn't like. Remus looked up to see him gazing at the window over the sink, which he very badly wanted to point out they'd just replaced.
Love, haven't you learned enough new skills this year? Not to discourage you, just, the plastering, the woodworking, the tiling. It's rather a lot, isn't it? I'm worried you're doing too much.
I mean, we're getting close to finished, aren't we?
Sirius countered.
We only need a new countertop and a dishwasher in here, and then tile the new shower in our ensuite, and get back to the floors upstairs.
That sounded like quite a lot to Remus, actually.
I guess. I don't know, baby. It's just that your plate is already so full.
I'll think about it.
Sirius wrinkled his nose, like the idea of waiting to see if it held his interest, instead of diving in head first, was a bad smell he was trying to ignore. He didn't wait for long. By the end of the next week, a whole shipment of supplies arrived on their doorstep. Remus brought them in the house, a stack of colorful sheets of glass, a pair of thick rubber gloves, a few packages of copper foil, and a fat roll of metal labeled leaded solder.
Hey, Pats.
He called, the concern in his tone evident to his own ears.
Yeah.
Sirius's voice echoed from somewhere in the back of the house.
Does making stained glass involve working with lead, perchance?
Sirius strolled into the room, Shirley at his heels.
Oh, did my things come? Excellent.
Sirius.
Remus chastised.
What?
The faux innocence in his voice wasn't fooling anyone.
That's not an answer.
Sirius rolled his eyes.
Yes, okay, it does. But I have a million respirators from all the other projects, and I'll use gloves and be really careful. Honestly, the silica dust might be worse anyway. It can make your lungs seize up if you inhale too much.
What?
Remus squawked.
You're not helping your case here, darling.
That's more of a problem for professional stonemasons, not hobbyist stained glass artists.
Sirius waved a dismissive hand.
I have a bunch more research to do before I even start. Stop worrying about it. I just wanted to see what everything looked like. I learn best with my hands. You know this.
That was true. He'd muddled his way through class lectures in uni like they were medieval torture, bored to tears and retaining just enough of the economic theory his MBA required to skate by. But it had taken all of 3 goes on the beer taps to learn how to pull a perfect pint every time. He'd slid it across the bar to Remus with a wink and a smirk. Excellent head, as always. Sirius was as good as his word. He didn't do anything but tear into the boxes and lay out a bunch of supplies, then read tutorial after blog post after Reddit thread, and watched hours of YouTube videos. He set up the glass grinder in the barn next to his motorbike, where it sat untouched for a few weeks. Pages of colorful designs gradually spread across the house, the most striking of which, a mosaic of the night sky in dark blues, blacks, and purples scattered with bright stars and a crescent moon, wound up taped to the window over the sink. Then, slowly, the sketches found their way into the bin or a pile at the edge of the counter. The supplies moved from an array on the coffee table to a stack in the corner of the second bedroom, and Remus knew he wouldn't have to worry about lead poisoning or lung disease. He finally asked one evening during dinner, after all but a few traces of stained glass creation had been squirreled away out of sight.
What are you thinking about the windows, love?
Sirius frowned at the drawing still tacked above the sink.
Someday I'd like to do it. I just haven't had the time yet. I'll get to it after the other projects are done, I think. That window is brand new anyway.
That makes sense to me.
Remus nodded, trying not to let Sirius see the visible relief on his face.
I do think I'd enjoy it, though. Maybe we should do mosaic tile in the shower instead, just as an accent, though.
Remus nodded and didn't bring up the 3 new samples of tile they'd brought home the week before.
Sure, I think that's a great idea.
The tile whined as a teal square zipped through the new, delivered last week, wet saw's blade. Remus waited to approach until Sirius was done and his hands well clear of any danger. Catching sight of his husband, Sirius flicked the switch to still the machine and took out his earplugs.
How's it going, baby?
Remus asked, eyeing the array of geometric shapes laid out on the table. They were quite pretty, he had to admit, though he thought there might be an easier way to mimic the Spanish tile meets Art Deco style Sirius seemed to be emulating. Sirius stepped next to him and examined the work with a wrinkled brow.
Good, I think. Everything seems to be fitting together.
Yeah, it looks great, love. Think you'll be ready to install soon.
I think so.
Sirius said, though the lip he was chewing told a different story.
Only, we can't do this for the whole thing. And I laid it out as an accent with metro tiles and I didn't like the look. So then I tried bigger squares, an oversized metro, and I didn't like those either. And now they feel a little, I don't know, vibrant maybe, asynchronous. I've tried so hard to bring everything else to a place of restoration, but I thought, well, Welsh cottages didn't have showers 3 centuries ago, so it'll always be out of place.
Remus chuckled.
Sure, fair enough.
Mooney?
Sirius turned to him with wide, apologetic eyes.
Yes, love.
I hate it.
Remus had to fight down a laugh.
I know you do, sweetheart.
I'm sorry.
Don't be.
Remus chided and pressed a kiss to his forehead.
All I care about is that you're happy with the end result. It can take 5 years if it needs to.
Thank you. I love you.
Remus hated it when Sirius said I love you like he meant it as an apology, like it was the only thing he could offer to make up for his flaws. This wasn't the time for that conversation, though, when Sirius was already soft and vulnerable. It would feel like a criticism. Instead, he offered the thing his husband actually needed.
I love you too, sweetheart. More than anyone or anything else in the world.
Remus leaned against the door jamb in the second bedroom, where Sirius knelt on the freshly installed hardwood planks. They'd given up the original flooring as a bad job after several months of failed attempts to restore them, so Lyle had come to replace the stairs and teach Sirius as they worked through the hallway. Now, boards lay scattered on the subfloor in a rough approximation of their permanent homes, so he could quickly grab them and slide them into place. Over the last 2 days, he'd developed a steady rhythm that was driving Remus mad. Not in the same way most projects on this house had driven him mad. Oh no, this was much, much worse. Because watching Sirius lay floor turned out to be wildly, spine-meltingly sexy. It was something in the way his broad hands and shoulders moved, methodically placing each new board and tapping it into place with 3 hard hits of his mallet. Top, middle, bottom, sliding the tool he used to protect the finish along the board's tongue between each smack, before shuffling 2 strides to the right on his knee pads and doing it again. He never rushed, He never slowed, just kept the perfect, even pace where every firm hit to the wood echoed down Remus's spine and into his cock. It was frankly pornographic. Remus was a little embarrassed about the way it was impacting him, if he was honest with himself, but he couldn't help it. Sometime early the previous afternoon, when he was staring at the computer screen that hadn't held his attention at all, he realized why. It's the same way he fucks, he thought. The man knows the difference between harder and faster, and he has the stamina to get the job done. Remus watched a few moments longer, relishing the way Sirius's arse looked as he bent forward to pound the boards in place. The flex and twist of his forearm muscles with every movement, the strain of his jeans around his thighs when he spread them wide on every sidestep, the soft grunt that accompanied every swing of the mallet. God, the grunting. That was going to be the thing that did him in. Finally, Sirius reached the end of his row and sat back on his heels with a heavy sigh, looking for all the world like a pin-up girl stuck in a leather daddy's body. Remus peeled himself off the wall and cleared his throat, pretending he was assessing the progress instead of ogling his husband. He picked up one of the loose boards and examined it. Even the name of the stuff was obscene.
You know, I'd let you put your tongue in my groove.
Sirius barked a laugh and swiped his sweaty hair off his face.
It's actually tongue and groove, Moonbeam. And I'd love to, but I really need to finish this tonight. I'm pretty sure tomorrow I'll be too sore to do anything but lie flat in bed.
If you're inviting me to sit on your face, the answer is yes.
Remus arched an eyebrow and smirked. Sirius chuckled and reached for Remus's hand, tugging him down for a soft kiss.
You are the most ridiculous man I've ever known.
A swat landed square in the middle of Remus's arse.
Now leave me be, you menace, or we'll never get done.
Remus pouted, but kissed his forehead anyway.
You're no fun.
You seem to think I was plenty fun for the 20 minutes you spent staring at my bum.
I was pretending you were someone else, some sexy contractor I could try and seduce.
Remus lied. Sirius huffed a laugh.
Sure you were, baby.
Remus flipped him the V and gently shoved his shoulder on his way out the door.
I'm off for a wank if you change your mind.
He called as he headed for the stairs.
Enjoy yourself.
Sirius called back over the clatter of floorboards being arranged.
I won't.
Remus grumbled, then smiled as Sirius's steady rhythm started up again.
Or maybe I will.
They were once again standing in the tile outlet, staring at half a dozen different chunks of ceramic.
I just can't decide.
Sirius said, eyes bouncing back and forth between the options so fast it made Remus dizzy.
What's the struggle, love? Why is this the thing we just can't figure out?
They'd purchased and returned about 20 different samples, bought enough boxes of plain white metro tile to complete the whole project, then returned them and started all over again. Remus wasn't mad. He was, at most, mildly frustrated by the plasticky smell of their current shower liner, but he could tell Sirius's patience with himself was reaching a breaking point.
I don't know.
Sirius whined.
It just feels like a bigger decision than all the others somehow. I knew what those things were supposed to look like, what the house wanted from me. This one is brand new. We added this all on our own. There's no memory to work from, no style that feels like it inherently fits. Everything I try feels wrong, and I'm stuck.
His lower lip started to wobble until he tucked it back between his teeth and started chewing it anxiously again, fighting back the frustrated tears that threatened to spill over.
Oh, sweetheart.
Remus sighed and pulled him into a hug. Sirius let free 2 quiet sniffles, then pulled back.
Sorry.
He mumbled, not able to meet Remus's eyes.
This is stupid.
No, it's not.
Remus promised.
I think we might be going about this wrong. We've always picked through the options and chosen based on what caught our eye, right?
Sirius nodded.
I feel like that might be our problem. We don't know where we want to end up, so we don't know how to start.
That makes sense.
Sirius said, his voice small.
Let's start here. No history, no obligation to the house to restore it to its former glory. You can toss things out, guilt-free, and start fresh. What are you keeping?
Remus asked.
The tub.
Sirius said immediately.
I'm never giving up my clawfoot bathtub.
Remus couldn't be any less surprised.
Anything else?
He thought for a moment, then shook his head.
No, I think that's the only thing.
Remus nodded.
Great. That's really great, baby. Good start. Now what do you want from the space?
Sirius glared at him.
It's a bathroom. That seems obvious.
I'm not the one who has been worrying about how our home feels about every minuscule change, love.
Remus teased.
We both know you have higher hopes for this room than shave, shit, shower. What does it need to feel like?
Sirius squeezed his eyes shut.
Cleansing, obviously,
He started cautiously.
but for more than our bodies. For our minds and spirits, too. A sort of oasis.
Sure, that makes sense.
Remus agreed. A frequent spa customer he was not, but even he could appreciate the clarity offered by a hot shower.
What else?
I don't want it to feel cold or sterile. It'll need something to warm it up somehow.
Like a heat lamp.
Remus clarified, and Sirius laughed. Remus's heart soared at the sound.
No, like something not made out of stone.
Sirius nudged him with a shoulder, as though Remus had been teasing.
Though I wouldn't say no to a heater of some sort. Oh, or a warming towel rack. That sounds lush.
Of course it does, you great toff. Go on, what else?
A simple color palette. Something soothing. I want to be eased into my morning. Not shocked awake because the walls are lime green or something.
Sirius wrinkled his nose.
Black and white.
Remus offered, as though he ever really thought Sirius would choose something else. Sirius's cheeks flushed.
I might as well lean into my brand.
Of course you should.
Remus gave his hand a squeeze and craned his neck to see if he could find an occupied desk. When he spotted one, he kissed Sirius's forehead and dismissed him.
Go wait outside for a few minutes, baby. This is a surprise now. I've got it from here.
What?
Sirius squawked.
You're just going to, what, kick me out of my own bathroom? My own home?
He sputtered.
Yeah.
Remus nodded with a cheeky wink.
Your decision-making privileges are on mandatory holiday.
Sirius opened his mouth to argue again, but Remus cut him off.
Trust me, darling, don't worry.
Sirius huffed, but did as Remus asked. By the time he joined him in the car, Sirius seemed lighter, like a great source of stress had been lifted.
Get what you need.
Remus could feel him itching for information. He never had been patient enough to be good at surprises.
All taken care of.
Remus answered cryptically.
There's a coffee shop around the corner, I think. Cuppa before we head home.
Sirius huffed. Remus's diversion was noted and put the car in drive.
I think we should call a plumber.
Remus said as he handed Sirius the spanner, because he was a great big enabler.
No, we've got this.
Sirius argued, his voice echoing against the wood of the cabinet beneath the sink.
We just have to swap out this middle bit, twist on some hoses, and Bob's your uncle.
Remus frowned, though Sirius would likely call it a pout if he saw it, and pressed again.
And this is water pads. If we mess it up, we have to replace everything. The only thing worse is electrical work.
He paused.
Which technically this also entails.
Plugging in a cord is not electrical work.
He could hear Sirius rolling his eyes.
I feel like it is when you're also talking about water. It's a conductor, you know.
Thank you for that insight, Mr. Tesla. Has Hugh Jackman caught you yet? He's looking to clone himself. Needs your help.
He grunted on the last word, then swore when the nut he was twisting finally gave, and he knocked his knuckles into the wall.
Bloody hell. Got you stupid twat.
Are you talking to me or the cast of the 2007 Christopher Nolan film, The Prestige?
Neither, though. If you see David Bowie wandering around here, make sure he has my number.
Sirius said as he shook out his aching hand. Remus frowned.
I'm sorry, love, but Bowie's dead. I thought you knew.
His ghost, then.
Sirius shrugged and wiggled his fingers at Remus's kneecap.
Hand me that three-way shut-off thingy, would you?
Remus passed over the part, and, to Sirius's credit, he did change it out easily enough. A few twists here, and the hookup for the sink and washing machine was gone. A few more there, and a third hole for the dishwasher hose appeared as if by magic. Maybe this would be fine.
Bloody freezing under here. No business having this much of a chill in September. We'll have to fix that draft.
Sirius grumbled. He shook the dishwasher's line at Remus.
Well, help me get this in place. The angle is a bit shit.
Remus knelt down and peered at the valve.
Is it the right size? We might need an adapter, or maybe to cut it off. I think Dar did that to ours when we got one.
Should I turn the stopcock back on?
James's muffled voice asked from the airing cupboard beneath the stairs, where he waited by the house's main shut-off valve.
Not yet.
Remus called back over his shoulder.
Brill, here goes.
The pipes gave a great shudder and moan, and then spewed a flood of water straight into Remus's face. He sputtered and spat, and knocked his head on the bottom of the sink as he tried to move away.
What the fuck, Prongs?
Off, Prongs, turn it back off.
Sirius barked, though Remus wasn't sure James would understand him around his laugh. There was another metallic groan, and the spray slowed to a stop. Remus backed out of the cabinet, wiped his face dry, and shook out his sopping curls all over Sirius's jeans. His shirt was a bit wet, too, but Remus had taken the brunt of it.
I told you we should call a plumber.
That's not my fault.
Sirius defended around his chortle. The dickhead.
How could I have known that asking prongs would actually be worse than no help at all?
Excuse you. I'm very helpful.
James said as he sauntered into the kitchen. He stopped dead when he saw Remus's face.
What happened to you?
You turned the water on me, you asshole. Why would you bother asking if you were just going to do it anyway?
I thought you said yes.
Remus was going to strangle him.
I said not yet.
James opened and closed his mouth a few times, trying and failing to come up with an argument.
Yeah, I can see how that would be.
Oh, can you?
Remus mocked.
What did you think all the shouting was about?
I don't know, maybe a leak. That's why I shut it back off.
Excuse you, I lay excellent pipe. My work would never.
Sirius gasped, offended.
Oh, is that why Mooney moves like an 80-year-old? You've blown his back out too many times.
James waggled his brows.
I hope Shirley sleeps with you and farts in your face all night.
Remus spat at him. It was the direst fate he could imagine. Sirius gasped.
Mooney, you can't banish our girl to punish prongs. It's not her fault.
She sleeps with him half the time he stays anyway. The other half, she sleeps with Harry.
That's not the point.
Sirius chastised. He whistled for the dog, who trotted over and happily started licking the water from his face.
I can't believe your Da called you smelly. Such a bully, isn't he? Just a mean old bully to such a perfect girl.
Shirley yipped in response and lapped one long stripe across his nose.
Maybe she should use the custom shower prongs, just installed in our kitchen. Might stink a little less?
Remus grumbled.
Oh, stop sulking, Moons. We're almost done. Prongs. Give us a minute before the love of my life's head explodes.
Aye, aye, Captain. Back in the closet I go.
James gave a mock salute and disappeared back to his station. Remus clicked on the flashlight on his phone and crouched to join his husband in the cabinet again.
I'm not that angry, you know.
I know, but he was going to push your buttons. Then you would have started roughhousing like a couple teenagers, and we have a project to finish.
Sirius explained.
Not sure how I could do that with my 8-year-old body.
Remus muttered darkly.
Speaking of, you know what might make this project easier for a couple middle-aged men?
Sirius scoffed as he twisted the braided hose onto the pipe.
Some fucking lights, Sirius.
Are you asking me if we can put in bloody downlights again?
Sirius asked, incredulous.
Baby, please.
Remus begged.
I'm almost 40 and a software engineer. I can't see a bloody thing. Please let me have bright light so I won't chop off any fingers when I cook.
I make most of our meals.
Sirius argued as he attached the drain line and checked it was higher than the bottom of the sink.
And you buy pre-cut veg on the rare occasions you do.
The tea. I'll burn myself when I make tea.
He tried again. Sirius arched a brow around the clamp he was slipping on the drain hose and gestured that Remus could get out of his miserable position.
You could make a perfect cuppa in your sleep, and we both know it. I've seen you do it, Moonshine.
When I clean, I want to make sure I get all the pasta sauce off the backsplash.
This was a ridiculous argument. They rarely even ate pasta. Sirius tightened the last clamp and slipped out from the cabinet that was now a mess of hoses and pipes. He took Remus's face in his hands and kissed him softly.
Let's leave it like this a bit longer, and if you really hate it, we can put in some of your lights. Prongs. The water.
Remus startled at the abrupt change in topic. The pipes creaked and shuddered again, and Sirius stuck his head under the sink before declaring the project a success.
No leaks, wicked.
He thrust his hand in the air, which Remus stared at dumbly for a moment, before James's broad hand whizzed over his head to give the world's loudest high five.
Nice.
Shall we try it?
Sirius asked, eagerly positioning himself in front of the open appliance door. His elegant finger twirled through the air with graceful fanfare as he found the power button.
Bollocks.
They all stared at the dead machine. Not a sound, not a beep, not even a light to encourage them. Remus hesitated.
Did you plug it in?
Sirius cocked his head in thought then.
No, I did not. Thank you, Mooney.
You're ridiculous.
Remus couldn't help his smile. He bent down and fumbled in the cabinet until he came up with the plug. A peek beneath the sink, a grope in the lower left, and...
Fucking hell.
What?
James and Sirius asked together. Remus pulled back and shook out his hand.
Got zapped again. This bloody house hates my guts, I swear. Got it in, though. Go on, love. Give it a try.
Sirius jabbed at the power button again. this time with an air of vengeance for his lover, and it turned on with a happy jingle.
There we are, all installed. If I ever sound that happy to do the washing up, put me out of my misery.
Remus pressed his chest to Sirius's back, his hands over his eyes, and murmured in his ear.
No peeking.
He waited until he felt Sirius's lashes flutter closed, then walked them forward until they stood in the middle of the room.
Still shut. Good, just a second.
He moved to face Sirius instead. He didn't want to miss the expression on his face when he saw the finished product. Remus took his husband's hands in his, mirroring the way they stood to take their vows, and smiled.
Open them.
Sirius hesitated, clearly unsure if he was ready to see the project that had been finished behind his back over the course of the last month, but finally gray eyes took in the room around him.
Oh, Mooney.
He breathed. Shock covered every feature, from his wide eyes to his gaping mouth to the way he spun slowly on the spot to take it all in.
Mooney, it's perfect. You did this for me.
Remus laughed.
Of course I did, darling. I'd do anything for you. You know that.
I know, but
Sirius searched for the words, mouth opening and closing a few times before he found them.
it's so much. You did so much.
No, baby, you did so much.
Remus said, shaking his head.
I hired a designer and a bunch of contractors to give you what you wanted. You did everything else. You've worked so hard this year. I wanted to give you something that felt easy, that you could walk into and know it was made for you, instead of by you.
It's perfect.
He said. He walked to the far wall and ran his hand along the gray vein in the smooth white wall.
Is this real white marble?
It is.
Remus said.
Peace and clarity, right? That's what you wanted for this room.
Yes, that's perfect. And the floor is...
He bent down to touch the heated herringbone floor.
Slate.
Remus provided.
To balance, protect, and energize yourself. I wanted this to be a place where you feel supported and can recharge, and to ground the home a little bit.
He added.
Wales is teeming with slate, you know. It felt important to bring in something that's so natural to the house's environment.
Mooney.
Sirius said again, dangerously close to a whine.
That's so thoughtful.
I can be thoughtful.
Remus said indignantly, trying to edge Sirius closer to happiness from this place of overwhelm.
And look, come look at this.
He pulled Sirius to the floating vanity with the double sinks and round mirrors.
Teak wood for growth and renewal. It should last forever too. I thought maybe we needed something to warm up all the cold stone.
It really does.
Sirius agreed.
Excellent grounding energy. Harmonious. Makes it feel like a spa. And black marble for the sinks.
Yep, shielding, grounding, serenity.
Remus rattled off some of the metaphysical properties he had researched so painstakingly.
And nothing but the tub touches the floor, so it's really easy to clean, which feels like it lends itself to the purifying aspects. And I opted for the huge tiles for a more continuous look. Instead of the visible grout lines, I thought that'd be more calming.
It is. I'm already soothed.
Sirius said with a grin.
And you kept my tub.
He peered inside the deep cast-iron bath as though he was expecting something hidden in there.
And the black fixtures to go with the black paint on the outside. It's beautiful.
Then he crawled, fully clothed, into the empty tub and offered Remus a hand.
Come on.
Remus plopped in the other side, legs crossing in the middle with their feet by each other's hips. Sirius scrunched his nose and scrambled so he was the other way round, and Remus's arms wrapped around his waist before he even settled. Sirius melted back into his chest with a happy sigh, a relaxed puddle of floppy limbs and lashes kissing flushed cheeks.
Thank you, Mooney. I really, really love it.
I really, really love you.
Over the last couple days, they'd put the finishing touches on the house. All those little things that felt like niceties, more than necessities, after a year of living in a constant state of demolition and reconstruction. Their wedding photos found a permanent home on the wall. The switch plates were installed, and their finishing screws turned parallel. The old doorknob was replaced with one made of iron and black tourmaline, and the knocker with one specially ordered to have clear quartz and amethyst inlay. Remus put witch bells, a housewarming gift from his mother to Sirius, on the exterior doors to dispel bad energy when they rang. They now tinkled merrily every time they let Shirley outside. Sirius, bless him, had finally granted Remus's request for recessed lighting in the kitchen, which they installed together that morning. It had taken months of literal blood, sweat, tears, and half a dozen quick shocks on Remus's end of things, but they were finally finished. Remus volunteered to make dinner in celebration, which involved an afternoon of slicing, chopping,
See, Padfoot, I can chop my own vegetables.
and roasting chicken. As usual, it took him far longer than anticipated. The reason he always bought pre-chopped, and by the time he began to prep the salad, it was getting dark. He looked at Sirius, chatting away from his seat on the edge of the butcher block counter, and smirked.
See, baby, task lighting.
He said smugly and flipped on the switch.
All right, that is it.
A sharp, indignant voice cried. A petite, dark-haired woman with big eyes and a furious expression appeared at Remus's side and swatted his hand away from the light switch, only to pass straight through. Chapter 2, Practical Magic.
All right, that is it.
Before Sirius could process what he was seeing, a translucent woman was attempting, and failing, given the lack of corporality, to assault his husband. Remus, unsurprisingly, did not take this in stride. First, he jumped so high he seemed in danger of hitting his head on the ceiling. Then, he resorted to his preferred method of handling surprise socialization, cursing.
Who the bloody fuck are you?
The woman, Ghost, Sirius corrected himself. She was definitely a ghost, didn't see fit to answer his question, and launched straight into a tirade she'd clearly been holding in for ages. She may not have had a physical form, but she certainly retained her ability to shout in her afterlife. She stomped her ethereal foot and crossed her unembodied arms, a hard frown painted across her soft features.
I was going to leave you alone. You're cute. You're nice to each other, which is more than I can say for the last couple who bought this place. Your decor is nice enough that it doesn't make me want to become a poltergeist. I've been so patient with you, with your banging about and cleansing. The ridiculous number of people you've had in and out of this place over the last year. The continuous radio wave box you insist on keeping in the study, and your smelly mutt. But those blasted lights are the last straw. They make my ectoplasm ache, and they're ugly as sin. Get out of my house.
Remus bristled at that.
Excuse you, I believe you'll find our name on the deed. This is our house.
Oh, have you formed an eternal soul attachment to it in the last year? If not, I believe you'll find this is much more my house than it will ever be yours.
She sneered. Finally, Sirius recovered enough to speak.
Whoa. Okay, let's take a breath here. Or a break, rather. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if that was rude, given spirits don't breathe. Remus, love, will you please hit the lights?
The ghost and Remus scoffed in unison, but Remus did as asked.
There, that's better.
Says you.
Remus grumbled, arms crossed. Sirius frowned.
It's called de-escalation, Mooney. You know this. Stop being rude to our...
He wasn't sure how to finish that sentence. Guest felt like it would upset her. Ghost felt rude somehow, as did Spectre or Phantasm. Tenant implied a degree of power over her presence that Sirius suspected wasn't accurate, and Remus would definitely be upset by the permanence suggested by housemate, which Sirius admitted was fair. Remus had always been a skeptic. It was understandable that the sudden appearance of a shade trapped between this world and the next would shake him up a bit. Implying she would be a permanent resident might be a bridge too far.
I'm sorry, miss. What's your name?
Sirius asked. That seemed like a much less loaded way to refer to her.
Mona.
She supplied.
Hello, Mona. It's nice to meet you. I'm Sirius. This is my husband, Remus. And I understand you know our dog, Shirley.
Yes. She's hated me since the second she ran through the door.
Mona rolled her eyes.
Dogs always do. The protective twats. Cats can go either way. Some hiss and run. Some like me. Some just stare and keep their distance.
That explained the barking and growling when they moved in, Sirius supposed. Clever girl.
It's nice to finally make your acquaintance. I'm sorry you didn't feel comfortable revealing yourself earlier.
Padfoot, don't encourage her.
Remus hissed.
What if she's, I don't know, a disgruntled spirit or something?
Disgruntled.
Mona cried.
That'd be the least of your worries. Disgruntled is a walk through the meadow. Disgruntled is a lazy Sunday morning. I'm malevolent, you utter belend.
Remus's face was caught somewhere between angry and alarmed, and once again Sirius found himself in the odd position of being the reasonable one.
She's taking the piss, Remus. Trying to get you all riled up.
Well, I'm sufficiently riled, I'd say. How do you know she's not going to drop a chandelier on us in our sleep or something?
For one thing, we don't have a chandelier.
Sirius explained, his lips twitching at the scathing look Remus tossed at him.
For another, she's still here. I've done every ritual I know for cleansing and protection from negative energies and intent. If she meant us true harm, she would be gone by now.
He shrugged.
Maybe you're just doing it wrong. Or you're less powerful than I am.
Mona sniped.
He's plenty powerful, I assure you.
Mooney argued, apparently settling on defiance as his preferred coping mechanism. It was sweet, especially given his husband's general spiritual skepticism, even if it was a bit misplaced in bickering with an apparition.
Thank you, love. I appreciate the support. But I really am confident she's harmless. I don't see a reason we can't coexist.
Sirius suggested, looking hopefully between his husband and their new ghost.
Impossible. Unless you take out these eyesores and put in real lights that don't make my brain go fuzzy with their stupid computer chips. Something with some class and beauty. Like a chandelier.
She suggested, miming dropping something on Remus's head and cackling when he flinched away.
They're staying.
Remus said flatly,
I like them and I live here, unlike you.
Wow, using my premature death against me. Rude.
Remus scoffed.
No less rude than freeloading for a year, then coming in at the last minute and making demands.
How is it freeloading to exist silently outside of your space? I don't cost you anything.
Mona explained as though Remus was rather dim.
And I've been here far longer than you have, you self-absorbed pillock.
Well, you won't be much longer, that's for damn certain.
Remus shouted, a rare occurrence indeed.
We live here now. This is our home. If you want to try and change that, go ahead. I've got all day.
I've got all eternity, motherfucker. Let's go.
Mona lunged at Remus, who held his ground this time, before she zoomed through the ceiling and disappeared.
Bugger.
Sirius muttered. That had not gone well at all. Mooney wasn't usually one to dig his heels in and antagonize, but Sirius supposed being faced with the occult in a way that brooked no argument shook him up. He was entitled to act out. Still, Sirius would have preferred his husband not openly declare war on a spirit tethered to their house.
Moonbeam, my darling. Love of my life.
Remus hummed in acknowledgement, still glaring at the spot where she'd disappeared. Sirius cupped his jaw and drew his chin to meet his eye.
Do you think it was wise to threaten the supernatural being who inhabits our home?
Maybe not.
Remus grumbled and crossed his arms.
Now she knows I'm going to get rid of her.
Bollocks. This was going to get ugly. The next morning, Sirius found one of his books on spirits and magic on Remus's nightstand. 2 days later, one about herb lore rested on the coffee table alongside his tea rings, and the next week, a heavy package from Sirius's favorite metaphysical shop showed up on their doorstep. Meanwhile, Mona did her best to make both of them, but mostly Remus, as miserable as possible. She scattered their mail all over the floor, shorted out their internet router thrice, and turned their bedroom lights on at least once each night, claiming turnabout was fair play. The fourth time it happened, Sirius lost his temper and tugged the bedside lamp's cord hard enough it nearly came out.
If we wanted to be woken up in the middle of the night, we would have gotten a bloody cat. I would have expected more maturity from someone with hundreds of years of consciousness under their belt.
The ghost cast him a murderous glare.
Look at my clothes. I died in 1988, you ninny.
Ugh, couldn't you at least be an interesting ghost?
Remus complained.
You weren't here for the Black Plague. You're not a revolutionary, not even killed by Spanish flu. What year were you born?
1964, not that it's any of your business.
She answered absently, as she eyed Sirius's water glass on the bedside table.
Don't even think about it.
Sirius warned when she nudged it closer to the edge. Her eyes met his and held as she swept the half-full glass onto the floor.
Oops.
You're insufferable.
Sirius grumbled whilst he used the t-shirt he'd worn that day to wipe up the spill. He'd take care of it for real in the morning. It was too late to deal with it now.
Unbelievable. You're this much of a pain in the arse, and you're boring as all hell. The least you could do is have the decency to be older than my da.
Remus cried.
Oh, you're duh.
Mona asked, eyes lighting up.
Silver fox, big hands, legs up to his neck. Now him. I'd let him install ugly lights in my kitchen any day of the week.
Oh my god, just leave, you rotten old hag.
Remus hissed. Mona floated out of the room, making sure to flip on the lights and flip off the pair of men staring after her. Remus huffed and got out of bed, stomping over to flick the switch and plunge them back into darkness. He barely settled in when he groaned again.
What is she doing now? Why is our mattress shaking?
Sirius couldn't hold back his hysterical laughter any longer.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Moons. I know she's driving you mad. She's doing my head in too. But you should have seen your face when she said that about your da. She really did get under your skin. Probably doesn't hurt that she's right.
Gross. Not you too. It's weird for you to act like you think da is fit.
Remus shoved his shoulder so hard he almost fell out of bed.
No, it's not. You look just like him.
Sirius defended. He rolled over so he was half laying on his husband's bare chest.
It just means I'm attracted to you, that's all.
Bullshit.
Remus grumbled, accepting Sirius into his arms despite the show of grumpiness he was putting on.
And Dar's not that tall.
Sirius snickered.
Sure he isn't, sweetheart. Whatever you say.
Sirius let the back door slam behind him and stomped the filth off his boots. It had been raining steadily for a week, and he was struggling to keep the chicken coop dry. At some point, a dirt floor was going to turn into mud, no matter what he did about it. He'd thought free-range chickens would prefer a coop with easy access to bugs, but he hadn't considered the sodden Welsh weather. Next spring, his girls were getting a wooden floor. The ducks were thrilled with the wet, though. A pond had sprung up in the pasture, and they were having the time of their feathery little lives, paddling around. He hung up his jacket and shook out his soaking hair.
Moony, what do you think?
He paused and sniffed the air.
Mugwort.
Was Remus burning mugwort? Sirius followed his nose into the lounge, where Remus was brandishing a dried bundle of herbs at a very unimpressed-looking Mona.
Moonbeam. What, pray tell, are you doing?
I'm cleaning our house of this bloody spirit.
Remus grunted out the last words, waving the faintly smoking stick in her face. Mona rolled her eyes, took a breath. Apparently ghosts could breathe when it suited them, and blew a smoke ring back in his face.
No, love, you're not.
Sirius said gently.
I am, and it's not working.
Remus cried.
She's still here. I put the bloody thing through her, and she's still around.
His motions moved from panicked, haphazard strokes to what appeared to be the sign of the cross.
The power of Christ compels you, or whatever.
Mona snorted and met Sirius's eyes over Remus's head in a sardonic look.
Sweetheart, you can't just choose to believe in a thing when it's convenient for you and expect it to work.
Sirius admonished as he delicately pulled the mugwort from Remus's hand and put it in the iron cauldron on the edge of the mantel.
You need calm, focused intentionality, for one thing.
Oh, I have intent, all right.
Remus grumbled, glaring at the ghost. Clever brown eyes stared back at him, a smug smirk on Mona's full lips.
Not the calm or the focus, though.
Sirius observed. Remus took a deep breath in, picked up his smoldering bundle, and exhaled slowly.
Fine, I'm calm. See? Very calm. And all I'm thinking about is her and her presence, and that I want her gone.
Sirius ran a soothing hand along his husband's spine.
I'm not sure this is going to work, Moonbeam. I still don't think she's any harm, but that's fine. Go ahead.
Remus moved slowly, watching the movements of his own hand and mumbling under his breath. He stepped slowly around the edge of the room, swirling the stick in a steady circle as he tried to herd her toward the door. Finally, when he got within arm's reach, she shrieked and flew backward to the far wall.
No, it burns. It burns.
Remus perked up and grinned at Sirius.
Really, it's working.
No, you idiot.
Mona said scathingly as she slid out of the tortured pose she had assumed.
I'm never leaving this bloody house.
Sirius wandered into the living room one afternoon to find Remus fussing with the furniture, arranging it in a rough circle around their oak coffee table.
What are you doing, Moons?
Trying to decide how many people we can fit in here for our seance.
He said distractedly as he shuffled the squashy armchair a little to the left.
I think we could do 6, don't you?
Sirius glanced around the space.
Yeah, I think we could fit 6 in here comfortably. I may need a little clarification on the seance part, though. Why exactly are we throwing a seance?
Because we have a ghost.
Remus said, as though that were obvious.
Indeed we do.
Sirius agreed.
And you're looking to call in others?
Remus wrinkled his nose.
God, no, never.
Right.
Sirius nodded.
I'm not sure how a seance is going to help then, my love.
Remus shrugged and pulled the table so it was more centered.
We're communing with the dead, right? Maybe a ritual will improve our communication skills. Push her to be more honest. Find out what's tethering her here so she'll leave.
His expression was so hopeful, Sirius couldn't bring himself to spit in his porridge.
Sure, love, it might. And when are you thinking about having this heart-to-heart?
Halloween, maybe. That's when the veil between the worlds is thinnest, right?
Sirius had to tamp down a laugh. The whole thing was just so moony of him. His practical, methodical husband, an avowed atheist for his entire adulthood, had been confronted with the clear and unarguable existence of the spirit realm. Of course, his instinct was to read every book he could get his hands on and follow the steps they laid out one by one. If Sirius were a betting man, he'd put good money on the seance chapter being right after the section on smoke cleansing, and he'd double down on Veil Between the Worlds being a direct quote. The book was probably called Ghost Hunting for Dummies or something.
Sure, babe, that sounds great. Who are you planning to invite?
Well, us, obviously.
Obviously.
Sirius agreed.
I don't think Regulus and Kingsley would come, even if they were in the country.
Remus argued with himself before Sirius even had a chance to object.
No, definitely not.
Sirius agreed. A thoughtful look crossed his face, and he turned hopeful eyes to Sirius.
Though Reg's general intimidation factor might get rid of her.
I don't think so, love.
Sirius shook his head.
Mona isn't afraid of anyone.
Thought not.
Remus pouted.
I don't want to make Monty and Effie travel all the way down here.
He mused.
I could run it by Mam and Da, I guess.
Hope would love it.
Sirius agreed, though he suspected she'd be more inclined to keep Mona as a pet.
Right, she'll think it's a hoot.
Remus nodded.
And of course James and Lily. Can't leave them out.
Wait, is this because Lily's been teasing you about believing in ghosts?
Sirius asked, suddenly suspicious of ulterior motives.
No.
Remus cried, cheeks flushing.
No, not at all.
He paused.
Or, okay, not entirely. But proving it to her would be a bonus, yeah.
Sirius arched a brow.
Sure, if you say so. And who are you expecting to act as the medium?
He had a sneaking suspicion he already knew.
Well, I was hoping you would do it, please.
Mooney pouted his pretty lower lip and batted his big brown eyes, and Sirius was done for. He could never tell him no.
Of course I will, baby.
It's not like this was going to be a hard one anyway. Easiest seance in history. Sirius always found he had to put more effort into his autumnal equinox celebration than any of the others. Yule was filled with the hope of lengthening days and the joy of gift-giving. The renewing spring energy of Ostara always made him feel fresh and alive, like he was waking up after a long winter, along with the flowers and the baby animals, wobbling into new growth and goals on shaky knees. He thrived on the vibrancy of Beltane, reveling in the sensuality and power that ran through his veins with the peak of summer's thinning of the veil. Mabon just didn't play to his natural strengths in quite the same way. He wasn't as good at reflection and appreciation, much more inclined to sullenness and boredom as the weather grew colder and the days shorter. He tried to see it as an opportunity for improvement, to serve as a reminder to slow down and express his gratitude for those around him, to pull them closer as they headed into the darker seasons. But it was hard, and he had to focus. Which was difficult when there was a snarky ghost hovering over his shoulder.
What are you doing?
Mona asked, sticking her head through Sirius's cheek instead of peering around it.
I'm making apple cider.
Sirius dropped a couple cinnamon sticks into the huge, slowly simmering pot and stirred it clockwise. He was trying to draw in power and energy. He would need it to get through the cold, dreary winter months. Still, he tossed in the occasional anti-clockwise stroke and stared daggers at their least solid housemate to make sure the intent to banish negative energy was clear and out of a sense of loyalty to his husband. The ghost barely seemed to notice.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Sirius sighed.
No reason.
Sure.
Mona hummed skeptically.
This seems like an awful lot of work. You can just buy apple cider from the shops, you know. Or you could in the 80s. And I can't fathom why that would have changed.
It's not just cider, it's a spell.
Sirius explained.
I'm meditating. The cinnamon is supposed to help banish negative energies, but you're still here, so clearly I'm not focusing hard enough.
Secretly, Sirius thought the spirit's continued presence, despite all the cleansing and banishing spells, spoke to her positive, or at least neutral, intent. But bringing that up seemed like a good way to argue with both her and Remus. Mona held up her hands, palms out, the sarcasm dripping from her defensive posture.
Oh, ho. Well, aren't you feisty today? Normally that's your lesser half's job.
Sirius pursed his lips, but didn't say a word. Not that it deterred her.
So the cinnamon is supposed to send chills down my spectral little spine. What about the other stuff? Apples must do something.
Sirius snorted.
It's a harvest celebration. Apples are practically mandatory.
Oranges?
Banishing negativity and promoting joy, which I'm going to need. I hate winter.
Seems to be doing a smashing job, doesn't it? The happiness radiates out of your pores.
She snarked. Sirius rolled his eyes.
It was before you showed up.
You both love a whinge, don't you? I'm delightful and criminally underappreciated.
She floated by his side in silence for a few moments, as he stirred in a sprinkling of cloves, and thought about the relationships he hoped to foster with his Mabon offering. Remus, of course, with a little extra intent of spice and heat for him. James and Lily, whose physical distance was further now than it had been since Sirius was in secondary school. Harry, leaving soon for uni and increasingly independent by the day. Regulus and Kingsley, politicking in France where their girls Vega and Lyra were in boarding school, and Reg was terrifying the diplomats. Effie and Monty, Hope and Lyle. Even the mailman might get a pint, as thanks for his patience with Sirius's online shopping habit in the last year. All of the people he loved, and another anti-clockwise turn for the ghost swatting idly at his wrist. It was like her only goal was to irritate him. She sighed heavily, her icy breath blowing his hair out of its band.
I'm bored,
She complained.
You don't have to stay.
Sirius offered.
Witchcraft can be rather dull if you're not an active participant.
He caught her expression from the corner of his eye and knew whatever came next was going to be crass.
Don't you think you have a bit too much penis to be a witch?
Sirius snorted.
Quite rude, that.
It's true though, innit? I thought witches were women. Shouldn't you be a wizard? Or, I don't know, maybe a warlock?
Sirius wrinkled his nose.
I practice witchcraft, not warlockcraft. I'm gay, Mona. My masculinity isn't anywhere near that fragile. Witch will do fine, thank you.
Mona hummed.
I still think warlock is better.
Oh, she was infuriating. No wonder Remus was eager to be rid of her.
Agree to disagree.
Sirius dismissed.
What are you still doing here anyway?
You mean, why haven't you disappeared me yet with your warlock craft?
Mona asked, grinning and wiggling her fingers mockingly. Mona wasn't the only one who could be rude. As it turned out, Sirius was quite capable in that arena himself.
No, I mean, why is your spirit haunting this house instead of existing in the afterlife? Like it's supposed to be. What business do we need to help you finish to get rid of you?
Oh, that.
Mona laughed.
My cousin Rosie died at the same time I did. Same gas leak took us both out. She moved on, and she's a bitch. So I decided to stay. Better to bother you than spend all eternity with her. At least here the cast rotates from time to time.
Sirius couldn't stop himself from laughing.
I'll keep that in mind for the future. My family is bollocks too. If the options are this, or going with them, I hope you're ready for another permanent resident.
No way. This is my place. You can't stay.
She shoved at his shoulder, and she must have meant it because it forced Sirius to step to the side. She'd never manifested so physically before.
You'd best make sure that gas leak is fixed then, so I have time to talk myself out of it.
Sirius was certain it was fine. They'd had the whole place inspected shortly after the remodel was done, and Mona died decades ago. Several families had been in and out in between. If it was a recurring problem, he'd know. Mona scoffed.
Believe me, if the alternative is you haunting me forever, I'll plug the hole myself until you can get someone actually competent here to fix it. God knows you don't have the skill.
Sirius rolled his eyes.
Such a generous offer. I'll keep it in mind next time Remus gets a zap.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Mona giggled.
Something tells me he'll be fine from now on.
Sirius gaped.
It was you, wasn't it? The reason he kept getting shocked.
Couldn't say a thing about it.
Mona shrugged with a sly grin.
Maybe the house just doesn't like him.
You're lucky we haven't exorcised you yet.
Sirius grumbled, the nerve of her hurting his husband.
Not for lack of trying.
She sing-songed, then zoomed away with a cackle.
Padfoot, Mooney, we're here.
Harry crashed through their front door like a small elephant, as usual, the knocker serving more as a warning than as a request. He was so very like his father.
In here.
Sirius called from the lounge before turning to Remus.
Did you know he was coming?
Mooney shook his head.
No, though it's probably lucky he did, since Mum and Dar were busy. I wasn't sure 4 people would be enough.
Well, lucky for you, we brought extras.
Lily said as a parade of footsteps stomped up the steps.
You'd think that kid was born in a barn. Honestly, who raised him?
She huffed as she pulled each of them into a hug in turn.
That would be you, love.
Remus said, tone laced with pity and laughter.
No, I don't claim that part. That's all from this one.
She jerked her head toward James, who had just returned from stowing their bags in the guest room.
Guilty.
Prongs shrugged without an ounce of remorse. More thundering feet rolled down the stairs, and then Harry strolled into the room, followed as usual by Ron and, more surprisingly to Sirius, who was accustomed to Hermione being the third member of their crew. their friend Luna.
No Hermione.
Sirius muttered to Harry, who shook his head.
No, and she said to tell Remus she was disappointed in him for going along with this.
Harry relayed with a grimace.
It was his idea.
Sirius all but squawked.
Hello, Luna. I didn't know you were coming.
Remus greeted in that polite, bemused way of his.
I hadn't intended to, really, but this afternoon I felt compelled to see the Welsh countryside. One shouldn't ignore such things, you know, though I'm not sure why I'm here. Most of the party seems to be dressed for a funeral. I hope my clothing is acceptable.
She plucked at her lilac jumper as she eyed the shades of black and gray around her. Everyone had, intentionally or otherwise, dressed for the occasion.
Oh yes, that's perfect. Purple calls out to the divine.
Sirius nodded.
You're impeccably dressed.
Sirius was wearing violet pants himself. Not that he was going to tell a teenager that. He did have some sense of propriety. Luna's eyes lit up.
Oh, we're summoning divinity. Daddy will be so pleased when I tell him the old gods were calling to me.
Less the old gods, more of a spirit.
Sirius explained, hoping she wasn't disappointed. He was trying to cultivate a positive energy.
We're having a seance.
Do you really have a spirit?
Ron asked.
My brothers swore we had a ghoul in the attic when I was little, and that it would eat me if I went up there. I think they were trying to keep me out of their fireworks stash, though.
He didn't look entirely certain.
We do, but don't worry, she's friendly.
Sirius assured him.
Or mostly.
Oh, I didn't realize you were a medium, Mr. Black.
Luna tilted her head and inspected him with those wide, probing eyes of hers. She really was a bit of an unsettling creature.
Have you always had the gift?
No, I'm not a medium.
Sirius shook his head.
Are you quite sure this is safe?
Luna asked.
I'd be happy to help. I've been a conduit for spirits before. My mother says I've been channeling my great Auntie Mildred since I could speak.
She was unsettling, but she was kind. Sirius had always rather liked her, and her offer to help only elevated her in his estimation. However, he suspected an inability to channel the spirit was going to be the least of their problems. Thus far, the issue had been getting their ghost to shut up. He smiled down at her and replied,
That's very generous. Thank you, Luna, but I think I have this one under control.
James leaned over and whispered in Lily's ear.
Did you understand any of that?
Luna offered to talk to the ghost. Sirius politely declined.
Lily whispered back.
All right, well, I think it'd be best if we just get to it.
Remus asked, waiting for Sirius's nod.
Brilliant. Luna, would you like a chair? I can fetch another from the kitchen.
No, this pillow will do quite nicely, thank you.
Luna said, already settled on a poof that Sirius didn't recognize. It was like she'd conjured it herself out of thin air. Did she own a travel floor cushion? Sirius wouldn't put it past her.
Let's crack on then, shall we? Phones off if you please. Does anyone need a beverage or to use the loo?
Sirius peered around the room at the guests, who shook their heads.
Excellent.
Sirius gestured toward the circle of chairs.
Everyone, choose a seat. You can wiggle around if you need. This isn't an exact science. It will be best if everyone is comfortable, and I'd like us to stay in a rough circle, but it's not overly fussy.
Sirius was surprised when everyone followed his request without delay. Moony sat to his right, then Lily, Luna, Harry, Ron, and James all the way back on Sirius's immediate left. Ron and Harry shifted in their seats, scooting closer to each other and Luna and further from Harry's dad. They were teenagers after all, but even they quieted faster than Sirius expected.
Anything I can do, love? Light the candles.
Remus offered.
Yes, please.
Sirius agreed. He felt a little silly, trying to center himself to call on a ghost he'd last seen 4 hours earlier as he was slicing an apple. But he would do his best for his Moony. He closed his eyes and concentrated, setting an intention for honesty, respect, and safety, and erected a mental boundary between the circle and uninvited spiritual visitors. A lighter clicked. Red flared behind Sirius's closed eyelids. Remus's elbow bumped his as he settled back in his chair.
Are we supposed to hold hands?
Harry whispered, loud in the silent room. Sirius had to stifle a nervous giggle. The anticipatory tension was making him a little nutty.
No, that's not necessary, though you can if you'd like,
Sirius said. He bit his lip against a smile as Moony threaded their fingers together. Sirius squeezed his hand once, then began.
Honored spirit, we invite your presence for community and understanding.
Sirius intoned, sounding a bit like the priest at the church his parents dragged him to for his whole childhood. You can take the boy out of the church, he thought as they waited. There was no response.
Please, Mona, join us.
Lily shifted in her seat.
Mona, would you mind manifesting if you're free?
Sirius asked, feeling quite silly. What else would a ghost have going on, really? Did she and her haunt friends have a party or something? Still no response.
Stubborn cow.
Remus muttered. A sharp gasp moved around the table, along with a muttered bloody hell and a what the fuck from Ron and Lily, respectively, when Mona's head popped through the center, brow furrowed and jaw set as she faced off against Remus.
Just call me a stupid bint, why don't you? I know you want to.
Remus smiled.
I knew that'd work. Hi, Mona. These are our friends.
Yes, hello.
She responded without even a glance.
Why are you doing this? You don't need all the theatrics to speak to me. It feels like the opposite of the banishing you've tried up to this point.
That's what I told him.
Sirius said with a sidelong glance at his husband.
He's following the steps. He's an engineer, you know how it is.
A titter of giggles rounded the table.
I'm right here, you know.
Remus grumped.
I can hear you.
We know.
Sirius and Mona said in unison. James guffawed and stuffed his fist in his mouth to stifle it, with Harry and Ron both mirroring his position. Lily's lips twitched at the corners as her eyes flicked between Remus, Sirius, and Mona, and Luna appeared serenely amused as usual. Sirius assumed that meant she'd make some startlingly astute observation later. The less it appeared she was paying attention, the more she seemed to perceive. Mona crossed her arms, and the chill that popped in and out of Sirius's toes told him she was tapping her foot under the table.
I'm here now, Tweedledum and Tweedledummer. What do you want?
Sirius turned to Remus. This was his plan in action. Remus hesitated.
Will you stop haunting us, please?
No.
Mona rolled her eyes.
Drat.
Remus muttered.
Did you really think that would work?
James asked, seeming genuinely curious.
No, but it was worth a shot.
Remus shrugged.
What prevented you from moving on?
Lily asked, resting her chin in her hand and giving the ghost her full attention. Sirius glanced at Mona to see if she took offense, but she seemed to find Lily's sincere interest redeeming enough that she didn't get her knickers in a twist. Mona studied her with equal intensity, frowning as she thought.
Choice, mostly. Better the devil you know, if you understand me.
Interesting. Fear of the unknown, then. Sirius supposed he could understand that, even if he was pretty sure it wasn't the same choice he'd make.
So you stayed because it's comfortable. Do I have that right?
Mona nodded. Sirius considered her for a moment.
And then we made you uncomfortable with some of our aesthetic choices.
He was determined not to make Remus feel like this was his fault, though the visible cringe told him he'd done a poor job.
Yes, obviously. You already knew that.
God, but she was impatient.
Could you go somewhere else?
James asked.
If you're not comfortable here anymore, isn't there another place you could haunt?
I don't know.
Mona said. Of course she would be pleasant to Prongs. The bastard could literally charm a corpse.
I don't think so, but I've never tried. I feel tied here, I suppose. Like a dog on a leash. I can only go so far.
What do you believe is tying you here?
Luna's voice was distracted and dreamy, but she may have asked the most useful question thus far. If they could untie Mona from the house, she could at least choose to leave if she wanted. Mona thought for a moment.
I lost my great-grandmother's ring here somewhere. It might be that.
So if they got rid of the ring, they could get rid of you. Seems easy enough. Where is it?
Ron asked.
If I knew that, it wouldn't be lost.
Mona replied scathingly.
Do you not know what that word means?
I just meant, is it inside or out?
Ron grumbled, ears turning red.
Mona, don't berate the kids.
Remus chided.
It was a reasonable question.
Outside, I think. I do think I'd feel more whole with it.
Mona mused.
That might be my unfinished business.
Sirius turned to Remus.
Are you satisfied with that?
Yes, I think so.
Remus nodded.
Thank you, Mona.
Oh, so he does know how to be polite. I've never seen it.
Mona groused.
Don't expect me to make it a habit.
Remus warned.
Okay, right then. I think it's time to shut the door.
Sirius interrupted as Mona opened her mouth to argue.
We appreciate your presence and the presence of any other spirits who may have been called in. Thank you for joining us. May you have a peaceful rest as you carry on your way.
He tried to be polite but firm. Just because they hadn't sensed any malevolent spirits, or no more than the usual one, didn't mean they weren't there. Hopefully they'd accept the limit and move on.
I'm only doing this because I want to. You didn't make me.
Mona frowned and disappeared through the ceiling. Sirius snuffed the candles and Remus turned on the lights. Everyone blinked in the sudden brightness, and then Lily started to laugh.
Well, I'll be damned. You really do have a ghost.
I told you.
Remus sulked.
I rather like her.
Luna said dreamily.
She didn't seem malevolent at all.
Mate, were you hearing the same ghost I was? She was mean.
Ron scoffed. Harry snorted.
More like rude, maybe. Not surprising you wouldn't recognize it.
Hey, I'm not bloody rude.
Ron defended, shoving Harry so hard he almost fell into Luna's lap.
You rather are, Ronald, but it's all right. People like you anyway.
Luna reassured him. Ron looked put out, though Sirius suspected he wouldn't hear that criticism if it was delivered in a more tactful manner. Harry's best friend wasn't known for being astute.
Mum, we're going into town.
Harry announced. Sirius couldn't hold it against him. No 18-year-old wanted to spend a Friday night with his parents and their friends when there was a pub to close down.
Have fun. Call if you need a ride.
James called as the teenagers scurried out of the room.
I agree with Luna, actually.
Lily mused, picking up the conversation as though the interruption hadn't happened.
For someone who acts like she loathes you, she hasn't done anything too awful, has she?
A few light shocks here and there and some general pestering, but otherwise no.
Remus agreed.
The shocks were a big deal.
Sirius argued.
She doesn't get to hurt Mooney like that.
Only ever him. What did you do to the poor thing, Mooney?
James asked. Sirius snorted.
Downlights. She doesn't appreciate his interior design choices.
Oh, well, I can't hold that against her.
James nodded.
They glare off my glasses like mad.
What is everyone's problem with recessed lights?
Remus wondered.
They're practical, they're unobtrusive, and they do what they're supposed to do without any fuss or maintenance. You're not obligated to use them, you know. I just want to be able to see when I'm making dinner.
Don't even try with them, Remus. We had the same argument when we bought our house. Some people cannot be convinced.
Lily shook her head sadly with a quick wink at her husband.
I just think you're making a big deal out of nothing with the ghost, mate.
James shrugged.
She's here. She's clear. Get used to it.
Translucent?
Remus corrected, falling back into pedantry when he was inclined to pout. The man loved to be right.
What?
James asked.
She's not transparent, she's translucent?
Remus grumbled. He was not taking their friend's casual acceptance of Mona well.
Not the point.
Lily said. Remus gave her an accusatory glare.
I expected you, at least, to be on my side about this. You wouldn't want to live in a haunted house.
I'm fine with it, actually. Gives the place character.
Lily reasoned.
Oh my god, that's not what character means.
Remus groaned, frustrated.
Character is the custom plaster job Sirius made us get. It's not a soul flitting about and pushing things off the table like a bloody cat.
Can be both.
Lily shrugged.
Yeah, you're being really dramatic about this, Mooney.
James agreed.
And we did get a lead on how to untether her from the house.
Sirius piped up. Remus really needed a win.
It wasn't a complete waste.
Remus wrinkled his nose.
Yes, I suppose that's something. Oh no.
Remus's distressed voice floated out of his office and into the living room. Sirius put down his book and tilted his head to listen, catching faint key tapping and mouse clicks.
Oh no, oh no.
There was a reasonably long pause, and Sirius picked up his book. The problem with Remus's work must have resolved itself. Then,
oh no. Fuck, please, no.
the tapping resumed, louder and faster this time, the clicking more frantic.
No. Shit. Buggering goddamn cocksucking arseweasel, fuck.
A long string of keystrokes followed, then Mooney stomped into the room, laptop cradled in one arm.
Mona.
He shouted. Sirius didn't expect her to answer. She didn't like to let Mooney think she was at his beck and call, and if he was this pissed off, she'd definitely stay away just to annoy him. So he was shocked when the ghost appeared, her face conspicuously demure and innocent.
Yes.
Don't give me that shit.
He sneered, pointing an accusatory finger at her.
I know you did this.
He gestured with his precariously balanced laptop, the screen filled with long lines of code.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
She replied airily.
Now, if you're quite finished.
She trailed slowly toward the ceiling. So slowly it seemed to Sirius she didn't intend to leave. She was spoiling for a fight, and Remus was determined to give it to her.
I was almost finished, actually, you rotten diaphanous corpse. And then...
Mooney.
Sirius scolded. He trusted his husband's judgment, of course. If Remus thought Mona deserved a lecture, Sirius believed him, but that didn't mean he needed to be quite so rude about it. Mona's eyes had a manic glint, and her deranged smile looked much more like a grimace of pain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Have I done something to inconvenience you? Is my very existence causing you suffering?
Yes, actually.
Remus said.
Good.
Mona hissed. Sirius cut in before Remus could snarl a retort.
What's going on? Moonbeam, what's wrong?
She fucked up my code.
Remus explained, showing Sirius his screen as though Sirius was supposed to understand the exact extent of the damage at a glance.
Are you sure?
Sirius asked, then backtracked when he saw Remus's eyes narrow.
I'm not questioning that something happened. I'm confused. How would she have done that?
I don't bloody well know. Bloody ghost magic or some shit. I'm not a fucking paranormal activity expert.
Remus cried.
All I know is that everything was fine. I was 30 seconds away from checking in my changes. And then zap. Computer crashes. All my work disappears. And then, as if that's not bad enough.
His face flushed brilliant crimson, and his chest puffed out in anger.
I got back in there, and everything I'd already checked in got corrupted too.
All of the rage seemed to flow out of his body at once, deflating him like an overfilled balloon with the tail let go, leaving his shoulders rounded and limbs limp.
I'm going to have to redo almost all of it. It might be easier to just start over.
Oh, Mooney, I'm so sorry.
Sirius took the laptop from his arms. He wasn't sure Remus even knew he was still holding it. It had become such an extension of himself, and set it on the coffee table, then drew Remus against his chest.
That's awful, baby. Is there any other way to set it right? Do you have any idea how that happened?
Remus waved a hand in Mona's general direction and buried his face in Sirius's collarbone.
It's vanishingly rare. I have no clue what she could have done. They didn't cover ghost attacks in my engineering challenges course.
Sirius huffed a laugh into his hair and stroked comforting lines down his back.
Are you sure? I feel like I remember you taking some course about cryptids. Ghosts and Nessie are basically the same, right?
Remus laughed too, albeit a bit resentfully.
Cryptography? And no, encryption and the Loch Ness Monster definitely aren't the same thing.
Well, this is sweet and everything. But if I'm off the hook, may I?
Mona arched a dark brow but made no other attempt to move. Remus scoffed.
What is your problem? You've been an incurable Burke all week, which, being worse than usual, is rather an accomplishment. Well done, you.
It was true. Mona had been particularly irksome for the last few days. She'd given Sirius's favorite ivy frost damage, opened the refrigerator door a smidge so all the food inside was ruined, and gotten back into the habit of swiping half-full teacups onto the floor. Sirius was going to have to replace a third of their mugs. Slate floors and ceramics didn't mix. Mona rolled her eyes.
Careful, Wolf, or it'll sound like a compliment.
God, did somebody piss on your grave or something?
Mooney frowned at her.
I want to help you cross over, Mona. I really do. But you make it hard to be on your side sometimes. We bought this house because it had such good bones. But now you're here and...
He paused, a wrinkle forming between his brows.
Hold on a mo. Bones. Mona, are your bones here? Does this house literally have good bones?
His eyes flicked up and down her spectral form in a quick appraisal.
Well, the good part might be a stretch. I'd say they're probably more bones of questionable virtue.
Oh my God, you're such a prick sometimes.
Mona huffed.
Well, we don't know what's rude to ask a ghost.
Sirius defended.
You're not very upfront with these things, you know.
It's more that he's calling the quality of my remains into question.
Mona explained, as though it should have been obvious this crossed a line, and as though she and Remus didn't spend half their lives sniping at each other. Remus shrugged.
I call it like I see it.
Mona narrowed her eyes.
I thought we all agreed you needed glasses, based on the kitchen lighting situation. Your opinion means fuck all.
Sirius bit his lip to hold in his laugh. Sometimes he thought part of what Mooney hated most about Mona was how genuinely funny and clever she was. If they met in other circumstances, say Mona lived in the village instead of being deceased in their home, Sirius suspected they'd be thick as thieves.
I can't help but notice you haven't answered the question.
Remus observed.
Are your bones here?
No, they're in the village cemetery.
She paused.
Or at least most of them are. This one is around here somewhere.
Remus scoffed as she flipped them off with her right hand. but Sirius leaned forward to examine it closer in the low light.
Are you missing the tip of your finger?
Yep,
Mona nodded.
lost it in a farm accident here when I was a kid. Grandad didn't get to babysit much after that, let me tell you.
Remus stopped laughing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mona.
She waved him off.
It's fine. Not sure I even missed it. I wasn't all that attached to it.
She floated over to nudge Mooney with her elbow.
Get it? I'm not attached to it.
Oh my god.
Remus grumbled.
Honestly, we should banish you for that alone.
You know,
Sirius said, thinking it through.
that could be tying you here too, couldn't it? Putting all your bones in the same place might set you free.
Oh, I didn't know you were one of the king's men. Are you going to put Humpty Dumpty back together?
Mona asked, her tone sharp enough to cut. She turned to Remus with narrowed eyes.
Does that make you a horse? Though I've always thought you were more of an ass, and he's definitely the ride.
Whoa, what did I do? He's the one currently trying to get rid of you.
Remus defended himself.
I'm not even sure I believe that'd work. This is the third possible explanation you've given us for your haunting. I think you're just fucking with us.
He turned to Sirius.
Did you know, I tried to find something about her death. News stories, death certificates, anything. There was nothing about a Mona who died in this village in 1988.
I cannot believe you.
Mona complained.
After all this time, you think so little of me and my integrity. It's short for Desdemona, you twat. My family was heavily into Shakespeare. The only good thing the English ever gave us, according to my da.
Amen.
Remus agreed. Sirius squawked his offense. It wasn't his fault he was born in the country that had made imperialism its whole brand since the Elizabethan era. Remus kissed him on the forehead.
Darling, you came from heaven, not England. It doesn't count.
Huh. Sirius pouted, though he accepted his kisses all the same.
You two are sickening.
Mona mimicked a gagging sound and moved toward the ceiling.
I'm getting out of here before you make me spew. I have no idea what it looks like to upchuck ectoplasm, and I don't think any of us want to find out.
Gross.
Sirius mumbled, watching her leave. Remus sighed as she disappeared.
Well, that all could have gone better, couldn't it? She still hates me in particular for some reason.
Are you kidding?
Sirius bumped their shoulders together.
She gave you her name, her real name. There's great power in names, you know.
Remus arched his brow.
Like Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes, exactly like Rumpelstiltskin.
Sirius agreed.
And she just offered it up. You didn't even ask.
I suppose I goaded it out of her just a bit.
Remus said, refusing to take credit for anything at all, as per the usual. Sirius shook his head.
No, she's far too clever for that. She wanted you to know. She's connecting with you, Mooney.
Sirius shook his arm in excitement.
She likes you. She wants to be your friend.
She's got a funny way of showing it.
Remus groused.
I'm going to be up all night. I still have to fix all my bloody code.
He was still hard at it when Sirius went to bed, tapping away at his keyboard, with Shirley curled at his feet. Sirius half woke when the dog joined him sometime in the middle of the night, but Remus never showed. When Sirius brought him a morning cuppa, his eyes were red-rimmed with bags so heavy, it looked like he was packing for a 3-week holiday. Sirius kissed his forehead and set down his mug before settling half in his husband's lap.
Good morning, Moonbeam. Are you still alive?
Barely.
Remus yawned, rubbing at his dry eyes.
I finished my project a couple hours ago, but I've been searching for local cemetery maps and turning up fuck all.
Cemetery maps because...
Sirius asked. He was pretty sure he knew, but he was a bit surprised Remus would have cared enough to hunt down an old hunk of stone for the spirit he loathed.
I'm trying to find Mona's. I did find a digitized obituary, and,
Remus chewed the inside of his cheek, staring off into the middle distance.
Did you know tomorrow is the anniversary of her death?
Oh.
Sirius breathed.
That explains so much.
Doesn't it? I think I'd be a bit tetchy too, if we were nearing the day I died. I know this sounds silly, given she never leaves us the fuck alone, but I think I want to visit her grave. Bring her flowers or something.
Sirius loved him so much, it ached sometimes. It was the most Moony thing he'd ever heard. Spend hours researching his nemesis, only to come away with a greater sense of compassion and caring for her plight. That had Remus written all over it. He probably felt guilty about months of snappish remarks, too, as though Mona hadn't been electrocuting him for the year before that. If he wanted to visit her grave, Sirius wasn't going to stand in his way.
I think that sounds very kind and generous of you, baby. Do you want to sleep first?
Remus hummed.
No, I'll just push through it today, I think. I can't sleep if you're not there anyway.
Charmer?
Sirius pushed Remus's face away with a soft press to his chin, then pulled him back in for a kiss.
I'll get dressed and meet you in the car.
20 minutes later, they were wandering through the rows of slate and limestone headstones behind one of the two Anglican churches in town. A biting early winter wind cut through Sirius's scarf and pinked his cheeks, with his gloved fingers twined between Mooney's. Remus hummed softly as his eyes skimmed over the stones.
You know, this is a bit odd, but I kind of like cemeteries.
Mooney confessed.
I always feel at peace here. It doesn't even need to be people I know. I just like that. Even centuries later, you can find someone's name and know someone loved them enough to memorialize them in stone.
He paused to read one out loud.
Thomas Griffiths, erected in his memory by his disconsolate wife, Anne. See, we can see a little piece of their love story 3 centuries later.
I like that.
Sirius murmured.
Me too.
Remus agreed.
I want everyone to know how much I love you for the next 500 years.
That's morbid.
Sirius said with a squeeze to Mooney's hand so he'd know Sirius wanted that too. Remus gave him a soft smile, the kind that crinkled his eyes at the corners and made Sirius fall in love with him all over again. And Sirius knew he understood. They wandered a bit longer until Sirius's shoes were uncomfortably wet and Remus's fingers were stiff with cold.
I reckon these are a little too old,
Remus said, eyeing the carved dates on a row of graves, all the same last name. All died within a couple weeks of each other in the 1780s. Most of a family wiped out by some communicable illness, Sirius suspected. He could feel Remus wincing away from the sad stories told by the stones, too.
We'd be better off finding somewhere with some marble, I think.
Sirius nodded and let himself be led away. They ran the heater in the car and stopped for 2 cups of hot cocoa before trying a second cemetery and then a third, where they found her pink granite memorial. Desdemona Ellis, birth 1964, death 1988. After life's fitful fever, she sleeps well.
Well, it's not her play, but at least they didn't imply she was killed by her spouse.
Remus said, reading the Macbeth quote on her headstone. Sirius wrinkled his nose.
I don't know why they still had to go with one of the murders, though. Was it really a gas leak?
Yeah, as far as I could tell.
Remus nodded.
Huh.
Sirius said.
There are 2 poisonings in Romeo and Juliet. I feel like they could have picked one of those.
They should have consulted us.
Remus smiled as he pulled a bouquet of hellebore from where he'd tucked it inside his coat and laid it across her grave.
They should have.
Sirius agreed, lacing their fingers together again when Remus straightened. Mooney sighed.
She deserved better than this.
Yes, she did.
Do you think she really even wants to leave? Are we actually helping her by trying to make her whole?
Remus asked. Sirius tucked him under his arm and pressed a kiss to his crown.
I don't know, baby. I figure it can't hurt either way.
I suppose that's true.
Remus agreed. They stood in silence for a few moments, gazing at the dates etched into the granite, before turning as one and walking away. When they got back, the lights in the kitchen were blazing to welcome them home. February was the worst month of the year, and nothing would ever change Sirius's mind about that. He could sleep through most of January if he wanted. The mental, and sometimes literal, hangover from the holidays felt like it lasted at least 2 weeks. After the weeks of gift purchase and creation, multiple holiday parties with family and friends, and the absolute rager James and Lily threw every New Year's Eve, all Sirius wanted to do was sleep and lounge. And since he was, as Remus affectionately called him, an unrepentant member of the leisure class, he often did just that. But Sirius could only re-watch Top Gear so many times before he went mad, and if he gave into his filthy layabout urges for too long, it started to take a toll on him mentally. He needed stimulation. He needed activity. He needed to not be cooped up inside the bloody house for months at a time. Which was why he decided to book them a quick getaway to Mallorca. Remus had just finished a big contract for work. They hadn't taken a holiday in a couple years, what with all the remodel work and the Spectre spectacle, and the beach was a novelty at least. He opened Remus's laptop to pull up the booking site. Big purchases required a big screen, and Mooney was the one with all their information saved, and couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the browser's open tab. A product rating for crossing over crossing guard, acting as a conduit for safe passage to the other side, stared back at him, with the little pencil signaling it was written by the logged-in user.
This book was useful in that it described the different types of hauntings and spirits, which helped put my mind at ease about the intent of our ghost. She genuinely doesn't seem malevolent, just acerbic and perhaps a bit bored, but I sleep better at night after reading some additional information that confirmed my husband's suspicions. However, the rituals were time-consuming and ineffective. Our decidedly stubborn spirit has not crossed over. 2 stars, but only because the minimum is 1, and I can't in good conscience rate this the same as some of the other drivel I've read on the topic.
Sirius barked a loud laugh. Was Mooney leaving negative reviews for the books he'd purchased to banish Mona? How long ago had he posted this? He knew Remus had read several as he tried to rid them of their uninvited housemate. Was this the only one, or were there others? Sirius scrolled to find the date and, out of uncontrollable curiosity, clicked the link to the user's profile. 3 more reviews came up, as did a few other verified purchases with something in the drafts. He scrolled to the oldest one and snorted when he saw it was, in fact, for a book called Ghost Hunting for Dummies. He bloody well called that one, didn't he? He clicked in to read it.
This book is all about finding ghosts. I'm trying to get rid of a ghost. It is quite literally the opposite of what I need. Does the word hunting not include killing things anymore? Though I suppose technically a ghost is already dead. Regardless, only buy this if you're looking for spooks and phantoms. If you're trying to get rid of a haunting, look elsewhere.
Oh, Mooney, such a literalist. The one for giving up the ghost, a practical guide to laying a lingering spirit to rest, had Sirius clutching his sides and wheezing. He was laughing so hard. He could practically hear his husband's voice when he read it, dripping in his particular brand of irritatingly polite sarcasm as he excoriated poor Gilderoy Lockhart's book.
I ordered this book in the hopes it would help me get rid of the woman haunting our home. This is my first personal foray into the supernatural, though my husband has been a practicing witch for years. And practical felt like just the thing I needed. Unfortunately, the rituals were decidedly impractical. Diamond-plated crystal flask. Virgin organic Bermuda Edelweiss dew. Edelweiss is an alpine plant and doesn't do well in the tropics, you ninny. My deepest apologies, Gil, but my magic wand is in the shop, and there's no other way for me to obtain impossible items. Even the rituals using objects that exist in this dimension were useless. She's still here, moaning about how bloody mean I am for using the Wi-Fi instead of Ethernet to write this review. Did you know ghosts hate radio waves? I did. She whinges about it incessantly. Gilderoy Lockhart, on the other hand, does not seem to, given it never once came up in this book. Though at least I know Lockhart's tooth whitening routine. Thank goodness for that. I might still be haunted, but at least it isn't by ghosts of Cuppa's past. This rubbish is a waste of perfectly good paper. It's unfortunate that trees were killed to print it. I'd rate it 0 stars if I could.
That one had 394 thumbs up, stating yes, it was useful. So Sirius apparently wasn't the only one who found his husband's humor hopelessly endearing. Reading the 4th entry made pride bubble up, warm and glowing, in Sirius's chest. Everyday Paranormal, integrating mediumship practice into your daily life, had a purchase date only a few weeks in the past and was written by a medium whose name Sirius recognized and largely trusted. Sybil Trelawney had a reputation for a bit more faffing about and showmanship than Sirius preferred in his own practice, but her workshops weren't scammy and she seemed genuinely interested in helping people, which apparently she had for Remus.
Shockingly, this is the most useful book I've read on this topic. All my previous purchases have been for the purpose of clearing the ghost in my house, and none of them have worked. This one focused more on communication methods, and whilst I still firmly believe her accessibility for conversation is a bug instead of a feature, at least I know how to manage my own energy in a way that doesn't antagonize hers. I never expected to need couples counseling with the spirit of a deceased apathetic Gen Xer, but here we are, 4 stars.
Now that Sirius considered it, that was true. Remus hadn't been letting Mona get under his skin. They weren't friends, by any means, but a tenuous peace had developed between them. Remus kept the lights off in the kitchen unless he desperately needed them, and rarely ran the microwave. Mona stopped moving through him and started moving around him. The week before, he'd heard Remus ask Mona to please jiggle the toilet handle to make it stop running, and Mona had grumbled a quiet,
"You're welcome, lazy fucker,"
and floated off to do it. Their mutual dislike had stopped filling the house like an angry hornet's nest, and now felt more like a fat bumblebee trundling from flower to flower. Sirius ought to buy Sybil Trelawney a Tea of the Month membership as thanks for restoring balance in his home. Finally, winter had blown itself out, and spring was bringing Sirius back to life. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, tender shoots of green grass were popping out from under the dormant winter brown, and the fresh new world was begging for the roar of Sirius's sweet, sweet victory. He'd been working on his motorbike since they got back from their 3 weeks in Majorca, making sure she would be fit as soon as the weather was nice enough to take her out, and the day was finally here. Mooney had picked up a work project with a quick turnaround time, so he'd declined the invitation to go for a meandering ride that could take 30 minutes or 3 hours, but that was okay. Sirius was happy to spend a little alone time with his best girl, besides Shirley, of course. He rode without any plan or intention, taking lefts and rights, and following the back roads through little hamlets he'd never seen before, until he decided he should have an ice cream and head home. By the time he pulled back into the shed, his shoulders were heavy with a pleasant ache, and his legs were numb with the phantom vibration of the bike between his thighs. He took off his helmet, shook out his hair, and returned his earplugs to their little case with a satisfied sigh. It was good to be back. He wrenched the door shut behind him. A door that didn't require his whole body weight to close was definitely going on his project list for the summer, and stopped dead when he turned toward the house. Remus was wandering along the low stone wall on the east edge of the garden, eyes trained on the ground, ears covered in gigantic headphones, swinging a metal detector back and forth over the grass. As Sirius watched, he dropped to his knees and dug in the soil, shifting through the dirt as he pulled it out by the handful. He frowned into his palm, pocketed his find, and picked up his pacing right where he'd left off. He looked like such a muppet. God, Sirius loved him.
What you doing, Moons?
Sirius asked, tapping Remus's shoulder and making him jump out of his skin.
Christ, Pads.
Remus huffed as he pulled one headphone off his ear.
You scared the piss out of me. When did you get back?
Holy shit, how did you not hear my bike?
Sirius marveled. He tugged on a speaker to examine the case as Remus let out an indignant squawk.
Who makes these fuckers? The noise cancelling must be insane.
They came with the metal detector.
Remus explained, freeing himself from Sirius's grabbing hands.
Speaking of,
Sirius said, with an arched brow and a questioning look at the equipment Remus was leaning on, like it was a cane. Remus started and inspected it for damage with a grimace.
I'm looking for Mona's great-grandmother's ring. I ran into an issue with my code, so I decided to take a break and work on a different problem instead, while I think about it.
Yes, I'm familiar.
Sirius hummed.
The solution never presents itself until you're too busy with something else to take care of it.
Yes, exactly.
Remus agreed.
Any progress?
Sirius asked.
On either one.
Remus pouted.
No, I did find an old farthing though. That's kind of neat.
He dug his find out of his pocket and dropped it in Sirius's palm. It was black with age and dirt, but it was something. A little pebble of hope that Mooney could find what he needed to lay Mona to rest. And maybe a neat bit of cottage history for Sirius to hang on to.
Will you be out here for a bit? Can I take this inside and clean it up?
Sure.
Remus nodded, slipped his headphones back over his ears, and gave Sirius a peck on the lips.
Back to it then.
Sirius scrubbed their treasure clean and left it on the windowsill to dry, where it was joined later that evening by another old coin, a long-lost button, and a rusty spring from some forgotten piece of farm equipment. Their collection gradually grew, a thin layer of detritus freed from decades under the earth and scattered throughout the house. Old bottles made their way into Sirius's chest of witchcraft accoutrements. A line of rusted doorknobs hung by the front door as coat hooks, and a jar of old buttons sat on a high kitchen shelf waiting for something. Neither of them were sure what they'd use them for yet, but Sirius liked them, so they stayed. Remus found other pieces of jewelry, fine chain necklaces, watches with broken clasps, a gaudy brooch Sirius took an immediate shine to, but never an heirloom ring. Until one evening, when Remus was scrubbing his finds with the little brush he kept by the kitchen sink, Mona appeared over his shoulder with a gasp.
"Oh, you found it."
she cried.
The fuck I did?
Remus mumbled in disbelief, his eyes tracking from the muddy circle in his palm to the ghost's face and back again.
You did. I felt it as soon as you came in.
She snatched the ring from Remus's hand and flicked on the lights, holding it up to examine with a critical eye. It still drove Sirius half mad with curiosity when she did things like that. He couldn't figure out how her relationship to solid objects worked. Sometimes she could move them at will, sometimes she passed right through. He had no idea if she had full control over it, and it felt rude to ask. Either way, he was utterly bloody fascinated. Mona thrust the ring out to Remus.
It doesn't even seem too terribly ruined, does it?
Remus dried his hands and delicately plucked it from between Mona's fingers, turning it back and forth and tilting his head so it could catch the light. He studied it intently. With every bit of care and curiosity, Sirius knew he handled all important things, even as he tried to play down his excitement in front of his supposed nemesis. He gave a practiced shrug and thrust his hand toward Sirius.
I don't know. I'm not good at this stuff. Pads, can you take a look?
Sirius could take a look, but he had no intention of interrupting one of Remus and Mona's infrequent positive interactions. They'd moved from outright antagonism to catty bickering and mild pranks, sure, but they still weren't friends. Or they hadn't been, until Remus returned what she had lost. Sirius refused to break their moment.
Nah, Moons, I'm good. Gotta keep an eye on dinner.
He gestured to the chicken on the stove and took a sip from his beer bottle with a smirk.
Thanks, though.
Sirius smiled at his husband's exasperated huff as Remus frowned at the ring in his palm.
You know more about this than I do anyway, Pads. At least come pat my head and tell me what a clever boy I am.
He shot Sirius a roguish smirk. Sirius chuckled and crossed the kitchen as he was bid. He never could resist Mooney's mischief face. The ring really was beautiful. He understood why it would be the totem tying Mona to their home. 3 small diamonds sat side by side diagonally in a bed of yellow gold, mounted in elegantly twisted squares that lay flat across the wearer's finger. It was modest but clearly crafted with care. The designer had perfectly balanced form and function. Not only was it a striking piece, but the low profile was practical for a woman who likely would have worked with her hands. Mooney had shined it up nicely too. Of course he had. Sirius's thoughtful, meticulous husband wouldn't go through the effort of digging up half the property to find a gift, because that's what it was, even if neither he nor Mona would ever acknowledge that fact, and then present it in anything less than pristine condition. He was trying to hide it, but Remus beamed with pride over his treasure. He'd set out on a fool's errand, a nearly impossible task, and he'd completed it. Sirius nudged him with an elbow.
Good work, Moonbeam.
Remus flushed a soft pink and tutted.
It was nothing.
It isn't nothing.
Mona disagreed, biting her lip. She looked at them with wide, sincere eyes for what was likely the first time in her afterlife.
Thank you, Remus.
Remus blushed even pinker, ducking his head away from the open acknowledgement of his kindness and skill. Then he ruined it.
Does that mean you're ready to cross over now? Or?
Oh, you are infuriating.
Mona huffed.
I'm still missing that other finger, you know. Probably stuck here until I get that back.
She flipped them off with what remained of her right middle finger and zipped out of the room, making sure to knock Sirius's beer off the counter on her way by. They watched her go in silence. Then Remus sighed.
I suppose I'll take that as a no.
Moonshine.
Sirius asked, his voice low in the darkness of their bedroom. Remus hadn't been asleep. Not really. Sirius could tell by his breathing. It took him a moment to answer anyway, to pull him out of the stupor halfway between awake and sleeping, where thoughts turned to dreams without anyone noticing.
Yeah, baby.
Why do you hate Mona so much?
It had been bothering him for a while. It was unlike his husband to develop this type of animosity toward anyone, even when they fully deserved it. Arsehole clients, power-tripping bosses, that fucker at the coffee shop down the street from their London flat who used to call him Marcus, despite absolutely knowing that wasn't his name, and hit on Sirius right in front of him. Remus treated all of them with more kindness and respect than they deserved, driving them mad with a specific brand of soft politeness that refused to give them the satisfaction of getting under his skin. The only people Remus had ever loathed like this were Sirius's parents and, well, everyone who loved Sirius hated Walburga and Orion.
She's mean.
Remus answered promptly, like he was reading off a written list of misdeeds.
She's demanding. She's rude. and she does everything in her power to inconvenience us as much as possible.
Sirius frowned.
I do most of those things, and you like me just fine.
Remus huffed, a sound somewhere between amused and exasperated.
You're rarely mean, and when you are, we're being mean together. When you inconvenience me, it's usually because you've picked up some ridiculous project that's going to be bloody impressive once you're done, that will benefit me in the long run. Or at worst, you're going to drag me along on an adventure where I get to watch you enjoy yourself. I love it when you inconvenience me. Your rudeness is inexplicably charming, and we both know I live to serve. I want nothing more than to meet every one of your ridiculous demands.
He shifted to place a soft kiss on the scruff beneath Sirius's jaw.
Oh,
Sirius said, squirming a bit in his husband's glowing praise of his worst personality traits. It still floored Sirius sometimes, the way Mooney's love was so all-encompassing and unconditional. He didn't love Sirius despite his flaws. In many ways, he loved him because of them. When Sirius was at his worst, acting in all his petty, brash, impulsive glory, when he was in a sulk or finding a bit too much comfort in a bottle of whiskey, Remus didn't shy away from it. He looked at Sirius head on, and he saw him, and he helped Sirius fix whatever had gone awry. They knew each other, inside and out, and often saw each other more clearly than they saw themselves. Which is how Sirius knew Mona's spiky personality was only half the reason Remus didn't like her.
that's not all it is, though.
It wasn't a question. Remus didn't answer right away, silently stroking his thumb over Sirius's hip as he formulated his thoughts. Sirius let him. Let the quiet expand as big as the space Remus needed to work through his frustrations, taking the time to appreciate the feeling of Mooney's warm breath against his collarbone and the soft curls tickling his nose. It was the calmest Sirius ever felt, lying in bed with his love pressed against his side, not a thought in his head, except to relish the sensation of the places they touched.
It's your dream, and she's ruining it.
What?
Sirius pulled back to study his husband's face through the darkness, but he'd curled more tightly into Sirius's side and hidden his face in his chest.
I thought this was our dream.
Remus shook his head and squeezed Sirius tighter.
I mean, it is, but...
He trailed off again before flopping onto his back with a frustrated sigh. Sirius let him go, giving him the space he needed no matter how tightly Sirius wanted to cling to him. At least from here, Sirius could read Remus's expression in the moonlight as he continued.
The house itself isn't important to me. What matters to me is how important it is to you. I have never been able to offer you all the things you deserve.
Mooney.
Sirius interrupted, a warning note in his voice. They'd talked about this a million times, and Sirius thought they were past it. He didn't care about money, about the arbitrary markers of success Remus felt compelled to chase. Sirius didn't care if Remus worked at all. He could close up shop tomorrow, and the only thing Sirius would feel was thrilled he and Mooney had more time to spend together. Remus worked because he wanted to, because he liked keeping his skills sharp and his mind busy. Sirius supported that decision because he knew the idea of being fully dependent on someone else terrified some deep, feral part of Remus's mind. Mooney was happier working, and Sirius was happy when Mooney was happy.
No, I know.
Remus jumped in before Sirius could even begin his lecture about all the reasons they loved each other that didn't relate to who paid for what.
I didn't mean money, I meant...
Mooney flipped on his side so he could look at Sirius properly.
You're so competent, baby. You have all these big ideas and the ability to follow through on them, and I love watching you work and bringing your visions to life. But you don't need me for that. You can do it on your own. The only thing you can't do by yourself is make a house our home. You need someone else to help fill it with all the love and acceptance you've always deserved and haven't always gotten. That's my dream, Padfoot. You're my dream. All I've ever wanted is to follow you wherever you go, for as long as you'll agree to have me, and do my best to remove every obstacle between you and joy.
Remus paused, the next words coming out dangerously close to a growl.
And no matter what I do, I cannot fucking remove the obstacle that is Mona.
Sirius watched Remus chew his cheek in the moonlight, his heart overflowing with affection for his husband, until he couldn't hold it back anymore. Sirius launched himself across the bed and pinned Remus flat on the mattress, smothering his body with his own and peppering his face with kisses.
You are...
Kiss.
the most ridiculous man
Kiss.
I have ever...
Kiss.
known.
Remus chortled and squirmed beneath him, pretending to try and push him off, which only made Sirius squish him further.
Why's that?
You, Moonbeam, Moony mine, love of my life, are my dream. I don't know why you'd believe anything different.
It was true. The only thing Sirius had wanted since the day he met Remus was to be near him. What started as intrigue about the quiet boy across the hall in their student housing turned into an irresistible impulse to befriend him, which quickly morphed to a deep, burning desire to kiss him, to love him, to share a bed and a flat and a life. One after the next, all in such rapid succession, Sirius couldn't remember what it felt like to not be falling in love with Remus Lupin. It was still happening, a little bit more every day, an eternal freefall that Sirius leapt into willingly, knowing Mooney's arms would be there to catch him if he ever got too close to hitting the bottom. Remus huffed and turned away from Sirius's searching eyes, and that just would not do. Sirius cupped his jaw in his hand and turned Remus to face him, brushing his thumbs over his cheekbones.
I love you, Remus Lupin. I love the little line between your eyebrows that you get when you're pretending to be annoyed, and I love the way the smile lines at the corners of your eyes say what a show your feigned grumpiness really is. I love getting to grow old with you, even though you groan and moan every morning like getting out of bed is the most painful thing you've ever experienced.
Remus tried to stop him, to cover his mouth with a hand, but Sirius ducked around it and kept going.
I love your even keel. I love the way you stop me from spreading myself too thin, even when I complain about it in the moment. And I love how you never say I told you so when I burn myself out anyway. You're my partner, my complement. You're the steady force that balances out my erratic impulses and makes it so we can live like stable, functional adults. Just being near you makes me a better version of myself, and it always has. All I've ever wanted is to be yours. And I love getting to do that here, in a place we can make our own. But it's not about the house. You are my home.
Sirius kissed him firmly, without any heat. The only goal to ground him and reassure him, Sirius meant what he said.
If you wanted to change our names and move to Antarctica, I'd do that for you. I'd do that with you, and I'd be thrilled by the opportunity.
Oh,
Remus said softly, like this was somehow new information. Like Sirius hadn't spent his entire adulthood doing everything in his power to gain Remus's time and attention. Like their life together had been a happy accident Remus stumbled into, instead of a plan Sirius had enacted the moment they met and executed to perfection. Sirius's silly, practical husband who couldn't stop himself from focusing on the particulars of any situation.
so you're not that bothered by the ghost then?
Sirius barked a laugh and snuggled into his chest, his ear pressed to the most treasured heartbeat he'd ever hear.
No, sweetheart. The only thing I don't like about her is how much she upsets you.
Oh,
Remus said again. There was a long pause then.
she does drive me fucking spare though.
Sirius chuckled.
I know she does, baby. We'll keep working on it, I promise. Holy fucking shit.
Sirius bent down to pick the tiny yellowed chunk out of the dirt and held it up to examine it closer.
No fucking way.
The rake he'd been using to level the dirt floor of the chicken coop fell to the ground with a soft smack as he abandoned his flooring project for more exciting developments.
Mooney. Hey Mooney, come here for a minute.
What's wrong?
Remus called, rushing out of his office to meet Sirius at the back door. Sirius appreciated it. He really didn't want to unlace his boots and then tie them again when they were covered in a considerable amount of chicken shit.
Take a look at this. Sorry, probably going to want to wash your hands. I just finished mucking out the hen house, but does that look like a human bone to you?
Jesus Christ, Sirius.
Remus squawked and tossed the fragment back at Sirius's chest, where he caught it with an open palm.
What the fuck?
Sirius held it up for him to see again, though he didn't hand it over this time.
Specifically, I think it looks like a phalanx.
Are you trying to tell me you think you found somebody's finger in our... Oh,
Mooney's eyes got big, and he yanked Sirius's wrist forward so he could have a closer look, though he still didn't seem inclined to touch the remains.
so this is it then? She'll be ready to cross over.
Possibly. She knew the ring as soon as she saw it. I can't imagine a piece of her body would cause a smaller reaction.
Sirius shrugged. The words were barely out of his mouth before Remus was calling into the house.
Hey Mona, we need you.
The ghost's dark head leaned casually out of the wall.
You begged.
Requested more like.
Remus grumbled.
Sirius found something, and, well, I think you should come take a look.
Mona crossed the room in the ghostly equivalent of a saunter, relishing her opportunity to play the expert. Sirius held up the bone fragment with an expectant grin.
What am I looking at?
She asked, grabbing his wrist in icy fingers to pull it closer. Sirius watched Remus's face fall through Mona's translucent torso and knew the disappointment was mirrored on his own. She felt the ring the second Remus brought it through the door. Either this wasn't the thing tying her to this plane of existence, or Sirius was holding some other poor sod's knuckle.
It's your finger,
Remus explained, though it came out as more of a question.
isn't it?
Mona let go of Sirius's wrist and stuck her hand through his instead, lining up the bone with her own shortened finger.
Is it? It fits my hand, that's true.
Mona agreed absently, wiggling her middle finger like the bone might reattach itself if she got the joint placement just right.
Yes, I do think this is mine.
So you're complete now.
Remus prodded as hope blossomed anew. His eyes met Sirius's, and it was like his husband was whispering in his ear, "We got it. She can rest now, and we can have our house back." There was a part of Sirius that was sad at the prospect of Mona leaving. Now that she and Mooney had reached a tenuous truce, it was almost nice having her around. She had a good sense of humor. Still, he did miss privacy and not being woken by a moody spirit just because he'd forgotten to turn off the Bluetooth on his headphones, and the signal was bothering her.
So,
He prodded, wiggling the finger at her enticingly.
how does it feel, Mona? Any different? Are you at peace?
She passed her fingers through the bone another time, frowned at her hand, and shook her head.
Not really.
What?
Remus groaned.
How can you not feel any different?
Don't know, I just don't.
She shrugged.
This is wicked though. Thanks anyway.
Sirius couldn't believe it. He was so certain this would work.
Well, what are we doing wrong? Do we need to reunite it with the rest of your bones or something? Should we bring it to the cemetery? Bury it on your plot?
Typical Mooney, troubleshooting the second something unexpected happens. Sirius could practically see him mentally running through the ghost extraction.exe code in his head. Mona narrowed her eyes, and when she spoke, her tone was icy.
Are you asking permission to desecrate my grave?
What? No, I thought...
Remus tried to backpedal, his face panic-stricken. Sirius jumped in to save him.
Is it really desecration if we're putting something back, though? That feels like the opposite of robbing.
You were going to dig. It counts.
Mona cried. Remus held up his hands, palms out, in an attempt to placate her.
Right, no digging. I'm sorry I asked. The bone can stay here unless there's something else you want us to do with it.
Like what? Burn it? Are you asking to cremate me?
Or, I don't know, put it back. Or send it out to sea. Or whatever makes you feel most whole, really.
Remus offered.
It's your party.
Mona stared at it a second longer, then shrugged.
Here's fine. Just don't lose it again. I still don't feel different, though.
Sirius's jaw dropped.
So that's it then? You're, what, just planning to stay forever?
Pretty much. You'll never be rid of me. Twats.
Mona flipped them off with 1.5 middle fingers and cackled as she disappeared back through the wall. Sirius and Remus looked at each other in disbelief.
Well, fuck.
Yep.
After the tremendously improbable yet entirely true phalanx recovery, the name needed work, Sirius could admit, but he thought it lent the appropriate gravity to the situation. Didn't move the needle on Mona's willingness to cross over. Sirius and Remus came to the conclusion they were fighting a losing battle. She was more or less happy in their home, regardless of what her vendetta against Remus and his aesthetic choices said. Even that seemed like a conflict born more of mischief and habit than actual irritation at this point. She'd stopped waking them up at all hours, their half-finished drinks stayed happily on their coasters, and Remus hadn't suffered so much as a static shock in months. It wasn't terribly inconvenient to have her around. They discussed amongst themselves, then summoned Mona for peace negotiations. They offered to fix up the attic to her exact specifications, provide her with a space for comfort and leisure all her own, and in return, she'd keep to herself for the most part. She had a standing invite to the lounge in the evening, and she was welcome to come visit any other time they called, but wasn't required to respond, of course. She added a few requests of her own. They tried to use more Ethernet connection than Wi-Fi because it gave her a headache. They had to warn her before they had guests over, but when all was said and done, the three of them came to an amicable truce. She asked for floors that matched the first story, wanted a television all her own, and chose a wallpaper with a complicated yellow pattern. That last bit made Remus laugh hysterically, but he agreed without argument and happily helped hang it. After all the preparation was complete, Sirius and Remus showed Mona to her new room. The trippy yellow paper delighted her, as did the antique stained glass lamp with its incandescent light bulbs. She gasped in delight at the ugly floral brown and orange sofa that she technically couldn't sit on, throwing herself on it so hard she literally sank through the cushions. Her finger bone was stored in the end table, right next to the telly's remote control. It was the most polite Sirius had ever seen her, effusive in her thanks and generous in her praise, until she shooed them out of the room with her usual amount of decorum.
Yes, it's lovely. You've managed to follow my directions exactly. Well done you for listening, and well done me for having excellent taste,
she said, ushering them toward the door.
But we agreed this is my spot. So you're already breaking our agreement, and it's time for you to go. I think it's best we spend some time apart after all the excitement of the last couple years.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Remus agreed, making a move to shake her hand before pulling back to flip her off with a smile and a wink.
Yes, ha ha. You're very clever and funny. Now get out of here. See you in 2 weeks when I'm finally sick of watching Love Island. Your generation is awful in general, but reality television is choice. Or else, maybe the next time you have sex, if I happen to be feeling desperate enough.
She slammed the door in their faces. They both stared, agape at the closed door. When Sirius finally found his voice, it sounded strangled and wrong to his own ears.
Oh my God, we need to move.
Finite. Thanks for listening to this text-to-speech podfic composed by Burning Aurora, Kaliana, and Flowerhawk.